and welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd.
And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart.
And today is episode 4 for Heat of the Everflame by Penn Cole, where we are covering chapters 32 through 41. Before we begin this Heat episode 4, please listen closely as always to our spoiler warning, because all of these episodes have spoilers for all of Book 3 of the Kindred's Curse saga, Heat of the Everflame. Yes, that includes the ending.
We've got a library scene today, friends. It is the reason this episode is so long, and we cannot stress this enough. For this episode more than ever, if you have not finished this book, if you don't know what happens in the last 3 chapters, then please go finish the series. We will be here when you're done.
Next, we of Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
Listen, we're parsing through a Kindred diary today. This is practically Lexi's version of chapter 72.
Yeah!
So, please be mindful of those little listening ears, because my voice is going to go up really high from excitement, pretty much.
Additionally, we are so excited to see you at upcoming live events.
Next weekend, we will be at the Everflame Ball with Penn Cole for the first ever Kindred's Curse Saga Ball on August 30th in Castle Rock, Colorado. I'm so excited!
We are interviewing Rebecca Ross, author of Divine Rivals and Wild Reference, on September 5th in Denver, Colorado.
We will be back at the Dragon Gauntlet in Boyne City, Michigan, September 12th through 13th.
Then Romantasy BookCon in Orlando, Florida, October 23rd through 25th, where we are interviewing Rebecca Yarros again at Disney World. And on March 6th through 8th in Dallas, Texas, we will be podcast partners at Dreamers and Readers Festival.
Check out our website or the links below for more information to all of these events, plus discount codes for some of them as well.
Last thing before we jump into this Heat of the Everflame episode 4. If you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and so much more all around, please check out Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 membership tiers that you can join. Number 1, The Descended, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord, live Q&As from Lexi and myself, a book club, exclusive author interviews, community events like trivia, promo codes for live events, plus exclusive designs and 20% off all merch. That is for $6 a month. Or you can join the Royal Family, which includes everything from the Descended level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines. If you want this one today, boy, it's a good one. And you also get special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. Last but not least, we have the Crowned Council, which includes everything from the previous 2 tiers, plus behind-the-scenes content, a welcome gift, giveaways, a private Discord channel, and your name shouted out on the podcast. That is for $25 a month.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. And as always, thank you so much for supporting us as we've turned this podcast into our livelihood. It is all because of you.
And now it is time to parse through every single sentence the great Umbrose Queen says in this stretch of chapters.
To start off every episode, Nicole does us the honor of summarizing this stretch of chapters. So gather round as we consult with our royal advisors to discuss what happens in chapters 32 through 41 of Heat of the Everflame. Take it away!
Chapter 32. After an endless amount of stairs that would give even Nesta Archeron PTSD, DM and co. finally make it to the top of the Umbrose Palace and are greeted with room after room of incense, music, and moans. That's right, folks. The Umbrose Palace is a one-stop shop for all your pleasure needs. If you can smoke it, drink it, or fuck it, you'll find it here. While Taryn and Zal are busy fighting out their sexual frustrations, the Queen of Umbrose arrives in her throne room, ready to force everyone to submission and have a good old laugh doing so. Talking with the Queen, DM finds herself in quite the pickle. Not the pickle that's rubbing up against Umbrose, though. DM is welcome to stay in the Umbrose Palace for a few days and get some answers. But if she declines this offer, well, the Umbrose Queen is gonna adjust her vote of the crowns, a vote that would send Arlie straight to the gallows. All right, looks like we're staying in Umbrose. Yay! Chapter 33. Chilling in their gilded cage, our crew enjoys a private dinner. Well, almost the whole crew. Luther is too busy hiding out in his room, avoiding the inevitable. Zal gives the group a TLDR on the Queen of Umbrose and why Zal turned on them. After a long dinner discussion of theories and strategies, sounds like an FFG recording, recording. Zelaric pulls Diem aside and drops the mother of all questions. Diem, how did you know about the betrayal? Alarm! Alarm! Abort! Abort! But Zal, seeing the real answer in Diem's horrified look, immediately plays the Umbrose game, aka don't ask questions. Chapter 34. After having a heart-to-heart, Taryn and Diem come face-to-face with Luther, and oh boy, he looks awful. But as Luther says, Diem, we need to talk. Oh God, any sentence but that. Luther almost gets to spill the beans about everything. But Simon, the professional walking fucking nuisance, arrives. Will someone just let Luther redeem himself, please? He's taken too many L's. My heart can't take it anymore. After a costume change, Diem finds herself in the dining room. From talks of prophecies, Diem's plans for Amarian, and how much Diem is willing to sacrifice, Diem finds herself with more questions for the all-knowing Umbrose Queen. But Yrselle might have some answers. Where do you ask? In her one and only personal library of the rarest books in Amarian. Chapter 35. A few hours later, Diem is still heads down, reading as much as she possibly can. The Queen's private library is a goldmine of lost mortal history, ancient religion. And what's this? A diary from the Kindred? That, yes, we will be going through line by line. But before Diem can keep reading all the juicy details, Simon shows up and interrupts her again. Seriously, this guy has the worst timing. Speaking of poor timing, Diem gets back to their wing just in time to watch two female centenaries leave Luther's chambers, talking about how big his eggplant is. Kudos for Diem for not just murdering them right then and there. But there's no time to process that shit show because it's off to, you guessed it, the dining room. Throwing back a much needed drink, Diem and Co. watches the Queen and her full squad of 100 centenaries come swaggering in. Buckle up, Buttercups. Chapter 36. Once everyone is seated in the dining room, Yrselle asks the hardest question to date. Wanna play a game? But first, what's a teeny tiny little test between friends? With Yrselle giving the group flame root laced aphrodisiac drinks, and Diem, using her newfound Umbrose powers, stops her friends from drinking it. Well, almost. Taryn shot that shit back faster than Luther's rising temper. After several rounds of the worst version of Would You Rather, the Queen gives Diem a little nugget of info about the war. The next war will be fought over blood. Whose blood? Diem's! Chapter 37. After dinner, the crew is rushed out of the dining room and into a fire hazard. A pleasure hall. With a few centenaries already going at it. You know it's gonna be a good night when the orgy starts before dessert's even discussed. Taryn and Diem retreat for a sulky heart-to-heart with drinks. But before the two hopeless romantics can drink themselves stupid, Yrselle crashes their pity party with some totally boppin' facts about death and fate. Note from our content researcher, Brooke. I was gonna make a joke about how she sounds fun at parties, but then I remembered what's going on around them. Chapter 38. While everyone else stays doing Umbrose knows what, Diem is ready to bust Luther's door down. She knocks. No answer. She knocks again. No answer. She knocks a third time. He answers. But maybe he shouldn't have, because homeboy be looking like a walking corpse, and his room is not faring any better. And it's looking like Diem might actually get some answers. Finally! Psych! Luther crumples like Nature Valley's crunchy granola bar. But it doesn't end there, because he's bleeding! Ripping his shirt open, Luther's secret is finally out! He's been wounded since Arboros with Godstone! Insert gasp here. Chapter 39. Everything makes so much more sense now. Why Luther won't let Diem touch him. Why he's gotten so pissed that she's risked her own life. Why he has the temper the size of Texas. Calling for Sarai and gathering the others, Diem starts hatching a plan. They need to leave. Now! And get back to Lumnos. Tonight! With everyone packed and ready to go, all that's left to do is wait for Sarai and pray to Mother Lumnos so that they can slip out into the night unseen. Chapter 40. Mother Lumnos must be pulling some strings today because the crew makes it to, you guessed it, the dining room with no issues. But maybe I spoke too soon. Shortly after arriving in the dining room, the Umbrose Gryvern lands and scopes out the scene. And they almost get away with it. The Umbrose Gryvern leaves so there's not a Gryvern fight and makes way for Sarai to whisk them away. Well, everyone but Diem, who stays behind, appearing to be sacrificing herself so the others can save Luther. Surrounded by the Queen and her centenaries, Diem holds her mental shield strong, but fighting off mental attacks is quite taxing. So taking a page out of the Flying Squirrel's handbook, Diem yeets herself off the balcony's edge. Chapter 41. Now she's free! Free falling, swooping in from above, Sarai grabs Diem and they ride off into the sunset with no issues and almost no deaths. Wait, that's just my wishful thinking. Racing off into the sky with Yrselle hot on their heels, Alix and Zelaric place an illusion over Sarai, but it's not quite enough. Tapping into her magic, Diem thrusts out with 2 hands, unleashing a stream of ice, then gusts of wind to aid Sarai. That's not Lumnos power, is it, Diem? But the queen isn't going to go down that easy. With a perfectly timed attack, Alix is knocked off Sarai and sent hurtling towards the sea. Using her wind magic again, Diem is able to stop Alix just in time. But the queen has one more trick up her sleeve. Reaching into everyone's minds, Yrselle turns the crew against each other. Right as Diem is about to give up, not seeing any way she can save everyone she cares about, a burst of lavender flames erupts, sending Yrselle and her Gryvern dropping like flies. And with the threat gone, it's time to go home to Lumnos.
All right, friends, it is time to reach for our foraging magic and unravel key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing, lots of theories, and so much more. This is the Umbrose episode we have been waiting for because it is time to meet Queen Yrselle. Carved into the canyons high above the city sits the Palace of Umbrose. Oh, and because our crew are foreigners, they are not allowed to use the fancy pulley system to get up to the palace. They are forced to walk an endless amount of spiral stairs to reach the palace. I'm assuming that anyone who lives in Umbrose, like, you know how the queen is the skin market's best customer, they get to go up on the pulley.
That's interesting because I actually figured it was only the centenaries and the queen who got to use the pulley system. So all the skin market workers and the deliveries or, anything else, they have to go up the stairs. I mean, they're making Diem, who's a crown, walk up the stairs.
But she's also a foreigner. That's what it was saying, that all the foreigners have to. So I like to think that the skin market, they don't want them to be all super sweaty when they get up there. They want them to be sweaty in different ways. They don't want them to be tired when they get there.
That's right. They need that leg power.
Yes. When it comes to foreigners, I feel like this is part of the queen's intimidation tactic, leaving them panted and exhausted and not in the fun way by the time they reach the top. Let's check in with our crew with this major change of plans / capture to be taken to the Queen of Umbrose. Because our friends might be going to their deaths right now after, Zelaric betrayed them last episode. Diem is wary and nervous, but determined to do pretty much anything right now to keep eyes off those around her. Remember, she was ready to let her group leave without her and stay behind to meet with the queen after she found out about Zelaric's betrayal. That way, the group could still get what they want by going home, and Diem could get what she wanted by meeting with the queen, and her friends would stay safe, right? But now, they're all in this together, caught trying to leave unnoticed and going to see the queen. Luther is, number 1, pissed off that Diem hid the fact that she knew Zelaric turned on them, and number 2, he is struggling really hard with the fact that he's dying, and there is nothing he or anyone else can do about it. And nope, still no one knows about his injury yet, except for the centenaries, who are subtly taunting him about it while not telling anyone else. Like how Simon claps a hand hard against Luther's hip, right where his wound is, and poor guy almost passes out while trying to play it cool. Alix is outwardly composed, watching and taking everything in, keeping her emotions and thoughts close to her chest, not letting them get in the way of duty to the crown. She is in full professional mode, on her toes for the danger they may be in. Taryn is pissed at both Zelaric and Diem. Zelaric because he turned on them when Taryn thought they might have something building between them, and Diem because he sees her flirting with Simon as a betrayal against Luther. Let's talk about that Zelaric betrayal, though. I know we covered why he did what he had to do because he was cornered and caught last episode, but Taryn certainly doesn't see it that way. If you read this without his bonus chapter context, we can absolutely feel Taryn's hurt through the pages, and we can put 2 and 2 together that something happened between him and Zal to make him this upset with the betrayal, and how he had gotten friendly enough to call him Zal. But we talked about the bonus chapter and know what happened. These two flirted, they went to the skin markets, and they started to hook up. We were in Taryn's head and knew he was genuinely falling for Zal, and that he didn't want to hurt Zelaric by abandoning him when his other loved ones have. And we know how unworthy Taryn feels, and how he yearns for love and connection. There was something special here with Zelaric. Yes, Zelaric betrayed the group, but Taryn feels extra hurt and betrayed because he shared something more with Zal. But we can also see where Diem is coming from with her sympathy for Zalaric and his difficult predicament. She can literally feel his sadness with her Umbrose magic, though she doesn't fully realize that's what it is yet. She understands when someone who has had to earn everything he's made sometimes has to make difficult decisions. In other words, she knows that those who have to work hard have to make hard choices, especially when people of power are involved, like the Queen of Umbrose. Zalaric, being a self-made man with people he's responsible for, could not lie in the situation he was in. He would get caught no matter what, so why throw his life away in the process? Diem understands why he had to do what he did, and she's not going to hold it against him. That's one of the great things about Diem that we've talked about so much. She can put herself in others' shoes, and she leads with empathy. Plus, she recognizes Zalaric for the useful ally that he is. Okay, yes, Terran can blame him for getting caught, but Zalaric is the only one in this group who has experience with the Umbrose Queen in many different ways. So why wouldn't Diem take advantage of having someone close who can help her navigate the situation with the Umbrose Queen? Now, whether Diem listens to Zalaric's advice is another thing entirely. Like when Zalaric is like, okay, don't insult or threaten the Queen of Umbrose, be quiet and polite, and Terran is like, we're all gonna die! You know, Diem, Terran has a point from your past experiences.
And with that, it is time to meet the queen, the star of this episode, Yrselle. When Yrselle and her Gryvern land, her power explodes through the room with a force that can only be intentional, coating the air so thickly that Diem feels like she was breathing her power in. The Queen of Umbrose's power is incredible. The intensity of her aura rivaling Luther's. Big deal alert! Yrselle may be on Diem's side, and she is going to be a good ally to Diem, I do think so. But she's also a crown who's been around the block. She's not afraid to send out these massive ripples of power to remind not just Diem, but all of her companions as well, not to fuck with this Queen of Umbrose. Two Centenaries rush out to help the Umbrose Queen down from her Gryvern, one of which drops to all fours to act as her step stool while the other helps her down. I love this. Everything about Yrselle screams power and sex. She's gliding smoothly, sauntering, her hips swaying, and as another show of power, just to prove that she can, Yrselle forces everyone to kneel to her, including her Centenaries and our Limnos party. Basically everyone in the room except for Diem. Why would she make her Centenaries kneel, you ask? It's a good question. Because it's fair to assume that they would have kneeled for her regardless in many different ways. But Umbrose thrives on power, especially because using mind power is so normal for her, for the Centenaries, but they see her as their untouchable queen doing what she does best. Plus, as Zalaric notes, Yrselle is ruthless when it comes to protecting her reputation, and she's got quite the big one that she needs to uphold. Because we're going to be seeing so much of this Umbrose power this episode, I want to pause real quick and look at the Umbrose magic from their perspective, because outsiders fear this magic. They see it as a violation, so much so that Yrselle says the other crowns would be happy to see their magic go extinct.
She's not wrong.
No, she's not. It's terrifying. I mean, she can literally do anything she wants. In Umbrose, especially among the Centenaries, they don't see anything wrong with this mind magic, with going into one's mind. They see it as Father Umbrose bestowing them this power, and why would they not use it? They play games with each other that are, in their minds, harmless. Like Simon mentioning the thoughts he forces into Diem, the ones that are very inappropriate. They are simply a prank, not the massive violation that they are, or how they're going to literally make a drinking game later this chapter stretch with the mirror game out of reading someone's mind. For them, this massive flex of power is just part of their normal life and their kindred born right. As we will see, they have no problem searching the minds of everyone in this realm. They have no problem taking autonomy over someone's body or making someone stab themselves in the neck. They also have no problem erasing people's memories. They can even erase someone's existence so they're nothing but a husk of skin. This is just their way of fighting. Like in Limnos, it's shadow and light. It's just power that is for them. And while Diem is horrified by this non-consensual ease in which Umbrose Descended can use this magic, she does have one positive note about it. It's literally impossible for the Centenaries to have secrets from each other. And that sounds wonderful to Diem. I'm going to point this out a few times this episode. This is a sign that Diem may have grown up in a we don't need to share everything with each other household, but that is not how this girl operates.
Right off the bat with Diem, the Queen of Umbrose, Yrselle, greets her by calling her Daughter of the Forgotten, and she establishes a kinship between the two queens. Only Diem can call her Yrselle because they are equals. And while she flexes her upper hand with Diem being in her realm, mind to mind, Yrselle has some advice for Diem, who immediately taunts her to fight because that is Diem. But Yrselle is not here to pick a fight if she can help it. Diem is a new young crown who is rash and doesn't know the ropes. And Yrselle wants to take her under her wing. She wants an alliance. She wants to offer Diem guidance. But she also can't let Diem get away with what she is trying to get away with right now, which is trying to fight her. So Diem, be careful, as Yrselle tells her mind to mind. She cannot let a challenge go unanswered in front of her centenaries. Maybe try this initial exchange again, Diem darling? And she's like, oh, okay.
There's also this moment where Yrselle sees Diem getting, protective over Luther, and the Umbrose Queen warns her centenary to back down. She says, quote, or else I'll be down a centenary. Like you're mentioning with her telling her to call her Yrselle, they're seeing each other as equals. This is also a huge sign of respect for Diem and her powerful nature. She's not talking down to Diem's power like we've seen other crowns do. And she's outright saying that her centenaries are not untouchable. Yes, she can feel Diem's power. She's not stupid. But the fact that she's saying out loud, hey, if you keep egging on the queen, you're dead, is a pretty big deal. It's time to learn the game of politics now, Diem. You made a little headway last book with standing up to some bullies, but you gotta get political maneuvering down. With
Eleanor is for the beginner level. Yrselle is the advanced level.
Massively advanced. But you know what? Diem needs that massive crash course right now.
Oh gosh, yes.
With Aurelie imprisoned in Fortos for, planting bombs on Kareel and leading the rebellion attack, her fate is in the hands of the crowns, who have the power to either execute her or free her with a majority vote. Whichever vote has 6 crowns backing it, that is the way Aurelie's life will go. And right now, it's not looking so good for Aurelie. I'm not gonna lie, though. She planted bombs on their sacred island. Yes, I see the Guardian's point of view, but also I see why the crowns are voting against her, because there are 5 crowns right now voting for her execution. Igneos, unsurprisingly, Phanos, Sophos, Fortos, and Miros have all voted off with their heads. Arboros has yet to respond, though.
Which really concerns Diem. Last she saw, the Arboros Queen was being dragged away by the Guardians, and there was a lot of subtle context that she was not going to be returning with a life. My guess is Arboros is staying very quiet right now, seeing how things play out, so I guess she doesn't show her hand.
That's exactly where I'm thinking, yes. Montios has not responded because Montios is Diem, and she just doesn't know it yet. And Remus, who is still regent, has declined to vote until Diem returns. Go Remus?
I'm going to be very interested in how we do our analysis of Remus next episode as we learn what he's been preventing and how power hungry he is. He is on his own team. I'm gonna call it. Yeah.
So real. And of course, there's Umbrose, who has actually voted for Aurelie's staying alive. Good job, Yrselle.
At least for now, as she kind of like dangles the carrot in front of Diem.
I mean, to be fair, it's a very useful carrot to dangle.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
But that brings us to the reason why Yrselle is giving Diem such a warm welcome. She wants Diem to stay at the Umbrose Palace for 3 days. She's got a lot to talk to her about, after all. And if Diem declines this offer, Yrselle might just consider changing her vote on Aurelie's life, which would then make it 6 votes in favor of Aurelie's execution, which would kill her. So, staying in Umbrose it is.
Yrselle's bargain for Diem to, stay a few extra days seems innocent, right? After all, it gives these 2 crowns more time to get to know one another. Diem may understand there is something to this visit's time frame with Yrselle's "you'll see" response to Diem's question about why 3 days. But the answer won't come to light until we are in Montios and learn about Ophiuchai's attack on Umbrose that takes place what was supposed to be the final day of Diem's trip. Unfortunately, the casualties of this upcoming attack are going to be very high. This upcoming attack will kill Yrselle's centenaries and every descendant they can find that lives in this melting pot of a realm. My heart hurts because I love this city. We've all come to love the city. And I refuse to believe the half-mortal children at the end are all dead.
Wait,
I refuse.
every centenary is dead?
Yrselle says at the very end of the book,
Yeah.
when they're on Kirill, she says they killed my centenaries and every descendant they could find. So she did not specify all of them, but she gave a blanket statement.
That's shit.
I know!
Shit.
Still wonder if Ophiuchi took the half-mortal children. I cannot let go that they are still alive. Like how he took the Mirror's descended children. Or, that's what we assume, that the Mirror's children were taken because they're all missing.
But is that better? Is that better if he took them? Because that's...
Because then I think that DM and Co. can save the descended children and the half-mortals next book, and they can all rally behind her.
Okay. That's better. Got it.
So Yrselle's real reason for DM staying 3 days is to ensure she is in the city to fight this fight. She's the only match for Ophiuchi. And yeah, Yrselle is going to consider the lives of her realm more important than Luther surviving a Godstone wound. And I'm under the impression Yrselle might even see DM winning this fight against Ophiuchi, not just protecting her realm's people. Because when they will see each other again on Kirill, Yrselle will imply DM has set off a chain of fate that leads to more deaths. And now all of those deaths are on DM's hands.
I wonder if Father Umbrose was going to bestow that information upon Yrselle. Here's how you kill Ophiuchi, because she still doesn't know. And Yrselle was then going to be able to tell DM. I think she saw herself dying in that fight. DM taking up the Umbrose crown and saving the city. And obviously that did not happen.
Yeah. So Yrselle's motivation behind this bargain for DM to stay 3 days is like, okay, I need to give DM the download of all this information that she needs to know, and then she can be here for this attack. And then together they can stop this powerful man before he picks up too much steam. I'm very curious how this fits in with Lumnos's vision of DM and Luther on the battlefield, because we know that is a future battle, not what could have happened in Umbrose, because, DM has the armor that doesn't exist yet and a weapon we find out in Sophos.
We've been focusing so much on DM and Yrselle and politics. Let's switch our gears and look at the romance. Or the lack thereof, because Luther's not doing so well, y'all. The night that they arrived in the Umbrose Palace and were getting settled into their rooms, Luther decided to stay put in his own private room because he needed rest. Well, the next morning, he's not looking very rested. To quote Taryn, he looks like shit. With his stature slumped in the door frame, his hair matted to his forehead, his eyes have dark circles, and the skin around his face looks sallow and hollow. This is not Luther. And thank goodness, Luther decided that this morning, it's finally time to talk to his queen. And he tells her everything, and she gets him help, and they live happily ever after. The end! Sadly, that does not happen, because first DM keeps interrupting him, I swear to fucking God, wanting to explain her side of the story from the tunnels yesterday and the seeming betrayal. After all, they promised each other brutal honesty, to which Luther grimaces with an audible fuck. Before we get into the second interruption, we need to ask, why is Luther seeing this moment as finally the moment to tell DM about his Godstone wound? I bet anything that he was up all night tossing and turning with this decision, and finally with them now staying a few extra days, and with this I have to tell her everything when we get to Lumnos promise now to the wayside, he sees this ticking clock. The truth is, he's probably not going to make it to when they get back to Lumnos 3 days from now. And DM's not willing to leave early, seemingly, because of Yrselle's "I might change my mind on your mother" vote threat.
And Luther can understand that about DM's choice, as much as it goes against everything he's been trying to do here in Umbrose.
So it is now or never. But before Luther can open up about his Godstone wound, Simon shows up and is all too happy to interrupt him. He brings an invitation. Her Majesty wishes for DM to join her for lunch, but only DM. The rest will have to stay behind. The timing of this literally could not be worse. As much as Luther wants DM to stay, he finally worked up the courage to tell her, he also knows that she needs to play Yrselle's game. He knows politics maneuvering much better better than Diem does, even if it means going with Simon, an idea that literally has Luther threatening to, quote, take Simon down with him. So, with some encouragement, Diem accepts the invitation to the dining room. If you're playing a drinking game of how many times I say the dining room, you're probably shit-faced right now.
I know we've said it so many times and we'll continue to say it, but we just love Yrselle's character. She is experienced, which brings with it wisdom, cleverness, authority, and perspective on Amarian and its crowns. The Umbrose Queen is feared by the other crowns. They don't want to get near her when she has her magic, and she doesn't bother with trying to play nice with them. But here's Diem, who she not only is speaking to and welcoming as a formal guest, she's also giving Diem advice on how to be a crown. Not just wear the crown, but own it, be the crown, and embrace the status and power that comes with it. Yrselle has been waiting for Diem to come around. Who knows when Father Umbrose first started talking to her about Diem? Was it only recently, which led Yrselle to visit Diem and give her the message to stop taking the flame route? Or has she been learning about this, receiving visions and such for a long time? And maybe when it became the Blood Sun, that is when she knew today was the day. I feel like that might be the more likely option. Like, not like who her next heir is going to be, because we know that that comes closer to when the end of their reign is. But we know that Luther got his vision about Diem from Lumnos when he was a child, and we can assume that was decades ago. Yrselle recognizes at least part of her role with Diem is to guide her. She's the best person for the job, after all. She can read minds. She was around during the Blood War. She imprisoned Diem's father. So here she is serving as a crown mentor for Diem, like how she coached Diem through politics earlier, mind to mind, when Diem was ready to fight. Diem, wear your crown. You are a queen after all. And crowns bow to no one, not even other crowns. And she explains how she can feel the forging magic run through everything in the realm, and how she has learned how to use it to her advantage over the centuries. It's like Yrselle is reminding Diem what she's also capable of, and I'll be so interested to see how Diem uses this forging magic to her full capability in Burn.
Well, and also if she becomes the crown of all the realms, she could tap into the entire forging magic, which would be just sick. Yeah. Conversation shifts to Orally, specifically why Yrselle decided to save her mother instead of condemn her. While Yrselle says some BS about how she was going against the other crown and it made the crowns furious. But certainly that is not the only reason. No, it is not. As Yrselle says, Orally has a role to play in what's to come. Okay, this is important. Let's talk about this. What role does Orally have to play? I will bet money. I will die on this. I'm going to die on a lot of hills this episode. That this is way more than what we've seen with her, with Orally finally giving the download about Diem's birth father and everything like that. Again, I am willing to die on the hill that this is because Orally is a descendant of the Everflame. What that means? I don't know, but I feel it in my bones that this is the role that Yrselle is referring to.
I could definitely see that. I also wonder if it's about having a role to play in helping Diem get allies. Like the good guardians who don't want to kill all descended, as Diem so eloquently put at one point. Even if Orally is starting to lose some of her credibility when we are in Luther's first 3 Burn chapters, I could see her being kind of like that bridge between Diem and the Guardians. Her role might also be to sacrifice herself, because I do not think Orally is getting out of the series alive.
Definitely agree with you that she's going to sacrifice herself in some way. I see the Guardians starting to distrust Orally, and Orally actually becoming a real roadblock for Diem to get to the Guardians, because they're starting to turn on Orally with how she's putting a descended crown, even though it is her daughter, over the Guardians' mission, like Cordelia is going to call out in the first 3 chapters of Burn.
That is very true, yes.
So I actually see that being part of the adversary comment that Yrselle's that we're gonna get to in a moment. Ooh. God, I love Yrselle.
Doing what Yrselle does best, she enters Diem's mind. But this time is notable because Diem's godhood responds to fight the old crone illusion Yrselle is creating in Diem's mind. And the cool warmth is inside Diem's head. Her skin begins to glow. We know what this means. And Yrselle is kicked out of Diem's mind. This has never happened to this mature, extremely powerful descendant. And she delights in it. Because if she didn't already have it, this is proof right here of how other Diem is. And that she is the destined daughter of the Forgotten that that Yrselle has been waiting for. Plus, I say this very respectfully, Yrselle is old and has seen every trick. She loves DM because she's new and exciting and livens life up with her unexpected magic. And she is the answer to the crowns and Descended having lost their way, which we will get way more into shortly.
Going back a little bit, but when DM allows for her crown to be shown at the start of lunch, Yrselle looks up at it and she says, incredible. It's almost like she sees the Montios woven into it and she's just like, it's happening. When DM asks about the forging magic being disrupted and if it was because of the prophecy, first, Yrselle commends her for being clever. But then DM asks if this forgotten blood on Heartstone Falls means that her father is the forgotten. Yrselle says, quote, words in prophecies can have many meanings, some quite obvious, some less so. We need to talk about this. We have strongly assumed, to the point of taking it almost as fact, that the daughter of the Forgotten refers to only Ophiuchi and the Forgotten Kindred. But I'm going to throw something else out as an addition. What if the Forgotten is also referring to the man with the red hair under the Everflame tree? We know that almost all aspects of mortal religion, with the exception of the Everflame, have been lost. So what if he is also the Forgotten? Meaning we have a double meaning prophecy, which is my favorite shit ever! DM is the daughter of two Forgottens!
I love it, and I agree.
I came up with that and I was like, I'm brilliant!
Yrselle gives us a history lesson about the crowns. This vote of 6 policy that they have here is a new creation, instilled years after the Blood War, where it only takes a majority vote among the Amarian crowns as they rule this continent. Like how Orly is a prisoner of the Amarian crowns, so her execution has to have a majority vote. But as Yrselle explains, a majority vote is not what the Kindred intended. The Descended crowns are supposed to act as one. There is a reason it takes all 9 of them to renew the forging magic. It was designed where they have to unanimously agree in order to act. But the Descended have taken matters into their own hands and changed the rules that Kindred set up. They don't have to act as one unless it's recasting the forging magic. They only need a majority. This reminds me of how the Lumnos Descended put in place the challenging because of their political structure. I'm willing to bet that Lumnos does not like that. But this history lesson isn't just about the majority vote and how they should act as one. This is about how the Descended have lost sight of what the Kindred intended. And now they will have to sacrifice so much in order to right these wrongs. Sacrifice the way of life as they know it. Sacrifice far too many lives, and who knows what else. And quite frankly, it pisses Yrselle off because she is playing by what the Kindred intended with opening her borders to anyone. And she has advised other crowns to not piss off the Kindred with their egos thinking that they know better with the way of the world, and she'll have to pay the price anyway. The Descended lost so much in the Blood War when they had too much confidence that they would win. Their hubris cost them dearly, and Yrselle can see history repeating itself. These new crowns have learned nothing. All they see is power equals strength and oppression is the answer. Amarian has hit its tipping point, and as it goes over the edge, that's where DM comes in.
Speaking of where DM comes in, Yrselle mentions how Father Umbrose has much to say about this daughter of the Forgotten. And I swear to God, this shit is going to keep me up at night. We can imagine that he shared the prophecy, that she's the Omnos Descended, that she has power unlike anything we've ever seen before, that she's going to bring peace. Although it sounds like based off how Yrselle chats with DM, that peace will only come at a great sacrifice.
Meanwhile, DM, still thinking that she's a Lumnos Descended, is like, why would Father Umbrose have anything to say about me? Like, let alone me! She's into Lululand now about whether she truly is Lumnos, because she knows
she knows she's not.
But that shouldn't be possible, like, literally whatsoever. And that's a lot to wrap around her head right now, no matter how many times she is reminded that she is very different from everyone else.
Remember when she burst into flames in Igneos and she's like, that was nothing. I'm going to give DM, I love DM so much. I think this is a 10 out of 10 in the Delulu scale for DM right now. Like I would give her a it's so other if it was only one instance of using another magic that was clearly in her face. She has had multiple.
Yeah.
But with this Father Umbrose has much to say about you line, I decided to shoot my shot. And I wanted to phone a pen and ask if there was anything that was not on the page that she was willing to share about what Father Umbrose has said in the conference call with Yrselle. And here's what Pen said. I'm nervous.
Is there anything I can tell you about what Blessed Umbrose said to Yrselle about Diem? A lot. There's a lot that he said. I don't know that there's much I can share with you. Yrselle and Umbrose had a close relationship, and of all of the kindred who have spoken to people in the world, I would say they have interacted the most. I don't want to reveal what Yrselle knew and what she didn't know. She really speaks to it herself at the end of Heat. We see her say that, Blessed Umbrose warned her and tried to steer her in a certain direction. And sometimes she followed those instructions and sometimes she didn't, to varying consequences. I think that Yrselle probably knows more about Diem than almost anybody that's alive in this world today. But whether she will use that for good or for evil is yet to be seen.
And on that note, Yrselle goes on to confront Diem about her plans for a new Amarian. And it's not like she's trying to trap her into revealing a big secret. Yrselle already knows, this is her confirming. And I'll say she doesn't know this just from reading Luther's mind. I think that she has learned a version of this and, Diem's plans for Amarian from Father Umbrose. As Mother Montios will tell the Montios crown to pass along to Diem, quote, 11 must fall for one to rise. Share the gift to pay the cost. A dying star will rekindle the spark. What is forgotten is not lost. That certainly sounds like a new version of Amarian, one that is more reminiscent of what was, which I'm going to conclude is the mortals not being oppressed, and that there is still hope for peace and harmony, though it will look very different than before. And this is what Yrselle is testing Diem on right now as she brings it up, especially with what she follows with.
As Diem and Yrselle know, nothing comes easy. So Yrselle asks Diem the all-important question, or at least it seems like the all-important question from Yrselle's point of view. How far is Diem willing to go for these plans to come to fruition? Of course, Diem mentions that she will die if she must.
Shocking! Not just for Diem, but for any FMC that we know and love. This is not just Diem. This is part of their courage, their morality, their dedication for a better world.
But as Yrselle points out, dying is the easy shit. Anyone can die. But can Diem kill? So that is the all-important question, isn't it? Side note, I think she's asking this because of Ophiuchi directly. I think she's like, she's checking in. Would you be able to kill someone I don't know, your sire? Can she also watch the people she loves die? Can she watch all of them die? Can she keep going when everyone she cares about is lying in their grave? And can she, Diem, be the one who puts them there? I'm more worried. This is concerning. We saw what happened to Diem when her father died. Naturally, she's a human. She grieved. Of course she did. It was her father. But here Yrselle is basically saying, can you put grieving on the back burner and not shut down when that happens and instead fight through it to whatever end?
You pulled out the to whatever I did there. Wow. I'm a little more preoccupied with Yrselle saying Diem has to be prepared to be the one to put them in their graves.
Henry!
No. I think Diem will directly be the one to kill loved ones?
No.
I just don't see that possible in any universe.
No.
But I could see her having to make the impossible decision where she is the indirect cause of loved ones' deaths.
Yes, definitely. But anyway, for this world of peace and unity that Diem is so desperately trying to build, exactly how much is she willing to give to see it come to fruition?
And Diem has a different answer than I would think her to give, to be entirely honest, because she answers instantly everything. And it's like that answer comes out before she can even think through it with such innate certainty.
It's almost like that's what her gut and her what she knows she needs to do, but her mind is that adversary that keeps getting in her fucking way, where she overanalyzes everything from everyone's point of view. And don't get me wrong, that is so helpful sometimes. And she wants some big things, and she's always saying, I need to follow my gut. This is it right here.
Yes, and I think that's an important detail for us, whether that's her intuition, knowing that this will be true and she will have to go through with it. Or she can't let herself overthink because she knows this is the only possible answer, no matter what it does to her. Like Yrselle says, that she will have to be willing to set all of her soul ablaze. And DM does not understand what that means yet, but she will. I believe DM understands this theoretically right now, but she will be put to a version of this test later this night. And from Yrselle's perspective, she might fail by choosing to focus on Luther and in turn hold her own soul together instead of stay and save a realm. Now, DM does not know that Yrselle is wanting her to stay so that DM can be there for an attack. Yrselle is very sneaky and not telling her that part, but Yrselle will say that she needs DM to stay for the lives of her people, and DM's going to choose Luther and in turn her own soul staying intact instead. I believe this question, how much of DM's soul is she truly willing to lose, is going to be a big theme in Burn, as she learns that everything has a price and a price must be paid. We're getting so much set up for that in this book. My only line of thinking with how this will play out is that DM will beat the odds, try to save everyone from the burning fire, so to speak, or die trying. Or almost everyone. Not everyone is going to make it out of the series alive. I think we can all agree on that.
Definitely. It turns out that this everything answer was sufficient to Yrselle because she decides to show DM the Umbrose Crown Library. Calm down, Lexi.
I'm sorry.
She says it's just because DM may have an affinity for books, but we know Yrselle better than that. She just heard from her future successor, who we can only assume Father Umbrose has been, talking about how she's the salvation. Should she be able to sacrifice something, though? And she just said she's willing to sacrifice everything. So now Yrselle's like, okay, your head's in the right place. It's time for you to get some answers. Before she leaves DM alone with the books that are very much some of the rarest books in all of Amarian, she says something very interesting to DM that I want to highlight. She says, quote, "Don't forget why they banned these books for mortals in the first place, because an education is the most powerful weapon of them all." Ooh, I want to briefly discuss this line because, wow, this is important. We've heard the term knowledge is power, and in a world like Amarian, much of the mortals' history has been banned, burned, or erased as a way to control what the mortals can think, what they can believe, what they can fear, what they can idolize, and what they can question. If the mortals don't have their old history to rally behind, they are thus easier to control and shape in the world of the people who are controlling what they learned, aka the Descended. We talked about this so much in book 1, specifically when we learned that the mortals don't get to learn about the Descended powers in school, and they have it instead as like a mystery and a fear tactic. That is just one example. Now, in our world, we have no shortage of these kinds of examples. Censorship, propaganda, book bans, to name a few, have been sprinkled throughout our world history as a way to control the population. But what Yrselle is saying is that there's nothing more powerful than taking control of what you are putting into your head. So a reminder that cough, cough, not just an Amarian, cough, cough. There's a reason why things are redacted. There's a reason truth is not shared with the public. And there's a reason that words are burnt out of pages like we're about to see in the books. Because if everyone knew this information, they would have the power of critical thinking. They would have the awareness to make their own conclusive decisions. And they would be able to look at arguments from all sides because they knew where others were coming from rather than just rallying behind the side that they've been molded to believe is right. After all, educated populations are not easy to control. So yes, Yrselle, an education is indeed the most powerful weapon we can all wield.
With that, Yrselle takes DM to her private library with a stained glass door depicting the history of Amarian. On one panel, bloody bodies are scattered over a red-drenched battlefield.
Pause! Did anyone else think about Luther and DM's vision? Because I sure did.
I did not! Till now! On another panel, 9 crown-wearing figures stand on a circular black platform, but the panel on top shows the Everflame, a tree with branches engulfed in flames, with a red-haired man leaning against its base. Oh my goodness, we are not even in the library yet and need to stop and discuss. There are a few ways we can interpret the stained glass mural of the history of Amarian, so let's talk through the possibilities. Panel 1 depicts a bloody battlefield, and we can draw the conclusion that this is portraying the mortal wars before the kindred arrived, as Montios will note in her diary. But I also want to bring up 3 other options, even if they aren't likely. That this is actually a battlefield from the kindred's homeworld and a depiction of what they left behind. Or it is a nod to a battle that we don't know about yet that occurred after the kindred arrived on Amarian, but before they cast the foraging spell with only 9 of them. Like Omnos could have been part of the cause of the battlefield, and he fought against his siblings and their wishes for the future of Amarian. No, I'm kind of stretching here, but just throwing out some ideas. And from Montios' diary, we know that some of the mortals are restless with the kindred's takeover. Could there be a battle against the kindred before the foraging spell that history erased? This panel could even refer to the Blood War, and Yrselle had these murals go up at the entrance of the library after the war. Though with how much this library contains information before the Blood War, I'm leaning toward this mural representing earlier days, and specifically that is the mortals before the kindred arrived. The second panel of the 9 crowns looks like a betrayal of them at the kindred's temple on Kirill. Seems safe to say that this is the kindred casting the foraging spell. But that's the easy answer. This could also be their attempt to bind the mortals' short lives to theirs, and it doesn't work. Or it could even be what they do to sacrifice Omnos. I do love how there's no description of the Heartstone or anything beyond them standing in the circle. Those other details are too hush-hush for a mural. Lastly, we have to talk about the top panel above the other 2, showing the Everflame with a red-haired man leaning against its base. Nicole is freaking out right now. The positioning of the Everflame on top of the other 2 panels is a very interesting, and we both believe, very deliberate position. We could infer this is chronologically the first panel, like Amarian's roots and tied to the old god religions, before the battles, before the kindred's arrival, but I like to think of this Everflame panel as overarching the other 2. Like that no matter what happens on Amarian, even with the kindred's arrival, the Everflame lives on. And I have to wonder, was it supposed to live on? There is so much mystery around the Everflame and how the kindred seem to have cut it down for their kindred temple. But they also did love their mortals, so it doesn't feel like this entirely fits. With that line of thinking, it does open up the bigger question of the Everflame's history. What might have really happened to it, or why might it have really been cut down? And how does the Everflame live on in its own way, especially with the introduction of the kindred and their magic in this world?
Redhead alert! This mysterious red-haired man at the base of the Everflame tree is sus. We will see depictions of this man twice later in Sophos. Once at the ruins of a temple where they first meet Doriel, and then at the library in Sophos, where my favorite scene happens in the entire book. In the temple, DM will wonder who this man is, and Luther will say, and I quote, "With that hair, he must be related to your mother." I've read enough fantasy to know that this is not an accidental line. So we have to ask, who is this man who has the fiery, rich red hair that Aurelie has, Teller has, and DM had before her hair went white? I think it's safe to say that Aurelie is absolutely a descendant of this dude. I think we both agree on that, right?
Yes, with a few more layers deep that we don't know.
Okay, then my next question is, who the fuck is he? Was he a tender to the Everflame? Like, did he light the Everflame? Did he keep it going? Did he spill his lifeblood and something in his blood made the Everflame never cease? Did he represent the Everflame and created the religion long time ago? Like, his hair was like, this looks like flame.
I love the idea that this was the keeper of the Everflame, and that gave him his own godlike status.
Yes.
It might not be an accident that all these old mortal gods' names are burned away, and he's this mysterious man tied to the Everflame.
Well, okay, so if he is this godlike creature, do you think that DM is going to talk to him in Burn? Especially with the whole take the Rosebane comment. Is he going to be one of the gods that she talks to?
I don't know. I will say I could absolutely visualize, her taking the Rosebane and ending up like at the Everflame with him there at the base, and then he stands to speak with her like he's been waiting for her. Like, I can see that so vividly in my mind.
So I asked Pen if she could tell us anything about this mysterious redhead, and here's what she said.
Does the man with red hair at the base of the Everflame tree have something to do with the ancient mortal religion? Yes. And I think that's all I will say about that, except that there's a lot more to learn about the old gods and the old mortal religion and the Everflame. And you will learn a lot more in book 4.
All right. Okay, now let's go inside the library, because we're not even in the library yet, that has books on mortals, descended, and even the kindred. Yrselle has some of the rarest books in Ammarian, and only the Sophos Crown's library can hope to compete with her collection. With a key to this exclusive space, Yrselle gives DM full access to everything in this library, which is something she doesn't even give her top centenary, Simon. Like, nobody is allowed in here except the queen. In fact, DM's welcome to come back anytime. She has an open invitation, despite the queen warning DM that the next Umbrose crown will be her greatest adversary. Oh, the irony! After all, Yrselle knows that DM is going to need this knowledge in the weeks to come. So, DM begins reading and reading and reading. And wow, these ancient tomes contain knowledge that were thought to be lost to the world. There's histories of mortal kind that stretch back before the kindred's arrival, and references to Ammarian's original cities, names of which have been banned from knowing, let alone writing or speaking aloud. These are the cities that have been previously mentioned in the series as long forgotten, but the knowledge is still there, at least stored somewhere to not be completely lost. I really am just clinging to we will get more of the old culture because these books do still have that information. There are treaties on systems of government the mortals had experimented with, monarchies, councils, parliaments, and even self-rule. The mortals of old were learning from their mistakes, each successive attempt getting more open and more fair. Until the kindred stopped that progress in its tracks by removing mortals from the governing process entirely. We will see in Montios' diary that the mortals were fighting one another before the kindred arrived. So I wonder if the kindred thought that they were the answer to this peace, so to speak. And the mortals certainly seem to think that as well.
DM goes on to read the scriptures of old ancient religions that have been redacted to hide the true names of the old gods. Oh my God, we need to talk about this. Page by page, the names have been burned away, only leaving vague, ambiguous descriptions. This is important. I mean, Penn just said that we're going to learn more about the old gods next book. Like, this is so important. I keep going back to this idea of what if the old gods in the mortal religions and the kindred's gods are the same gods, but through time and in order to gain power, the kindred and the descended erased that part of history to make the descended religion more front and center as a way of controlling the people. However, as the scripture goes on, it was the kindred who believed in the power of names.
I will say that is DM's assumption. She thinks that because of the effort that went into burning these names away, the kindred believed in the power of names. Quote, one could not hold on to what one could not define. In erasing a name, they erased everything that name once stood for.
Well, because we know at least Umnos was not a fan of this putting the mortals in their place. She wanted peace between the two races. And all the other kindred mated with humans, except for Omnos, but that's not even mentioned here. So why would they thus erase the names and thus everything these names of the old gods in these ancient religions stood for? Again, is it because their gods are the same and this was the kindred thinking they were melding these two races together in unity that way?
So I will say, we don't know that it was the kindred who erased these names. The earliest descended are really the ones who ensured that the kindred's legacy was put on such a pedestal. So I could see them being the ones. And that is really what started the chain of reaction to the descended over the generations, sucking more and more and more and being more and more oppressive of the mortals.
As you said, we learn in Montios' diary that the other kindred enjoy being called gods. So what if the kindred got there? They saw that the mortals were fighting and just a shit show. And they were like, well, they're thinking of us as gods. What if we get rid of this thing that was causing so much discourse? We make ourselves the gods. Then they're going to be fine because they like us.
Okay, so I do agree with that, but that's not saying that the kindred already have the same gods.
True, that's where I'm going down the hill.
Because I was going to say, wait, I agree with that.
However, this whole believing in the power of names is really interesting to me because we know that the kindred did have different names in their home world, home wherever. And then when they came to Ammarian, they were called something else, and then the mortals decided to call them Umnos, Fortos, the Latin names that we've discussed. So another thing is, could they have also erased the old god names because the old gods were actually their own names?
I'm leaning toward this being an example of erasing history to change perspective. I think that no matter what, we are in agreement of that. And these old mortal god names were burned by the early descended, who we know worship the kindred. And from their perspective, the old mortal religions would not unite the two people. So the early descended, thinking that they were better than the mortals, they did all of this after maybe the kindred were gone. Or, and this is a really big stretch, what if Omnos led the charge in erasing old histories? He's kind of becoming the scapegoat here, considering how Penn has had these thought-provoking societal themes, just throughout her writing.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I cannot help but think of another very popular series' quote. It only takes one desperate generation to change history, even erase it. One generation to change the text, one generation chooses to teach that text, and the next grows and the lies become history. This is Amarian right here. There's only one exception to this rule of erasing names from these ancient religions, though. It is the Everflame. However, by giving the mortals one name to keep, it became a rallying cry around the rebellion. And like DM wonders, if the Everflame had also been erased, like all of the other gods' names, would the Guardians be united under this rallying cry? Or would they even exist at all? And it's a decent question.
It is. Well, and the Crowns think that, they've learned their lesson now, though Yrselle has a lot to say about that, by making the mention of the Everflame forbidden too after the Blood War. Though mortals still revere it in private, yet it does lose more of its lore with each new generation because they don't have the text, right? It's forbidden. But with only the Everflame in name and symbol to cling to, it has continued to serve as the rallying cry for the rebels. The Everflame is the perfect representation of what the mortals have lost: their old culture, their homeland, their religion, their freedom. The Everflame existed before the kindred, just like the mortals existed before the kindred. As the descendant oppressed the mortals more and more after the Blood War, trying to smash any and all hopes of ever having a repeat with the rebellion, their oppression became a pressure valve, building up over the centuries as the mortals hold onto their symbol of hope and freedom. In these tomes, DM also learns more about the old mortal religion that the descended have ensured are practically lost to history. For instance, the old gods once plucked flames from its branches and gave them as blessings, flames that burned forever and kept their bearers warm even in the coldest of nights. Yes, I bet that is what the red-haired man would do.
I bet you anything. He was the tender of the flame, and when people needed the flame, he would be the go-between, basically. I also want to point out, and this just dawned on me, and I feel a little stupid for this just dawning on me, that if he was the symbol of the Everflame, the fact that generations later, his, as we're assuming, descendant, Aurali, is the guardian of the Everflame, the leader of the Guardians of the Everflame. That's just such a cool one-to-one connection that I, again, just thought of.
And this part is quite interesting. The glacial pits of hell beneath the Everflame's roots were not eternal. Unworthy souls condemned to its ice could petition for a second chance to earn their way into the warm haven of the undying flame. This feels very important. Maybe it's a symbolic way of saying that even in death, there is hope for salvation. We're still learning about the concept of souls after death in this world, but we do know that the kindred do not actually die, though they can, and mates wait for the other half of their soul to go into the afterlife together. I don't have a concrete theory on all this yet, but I'm pointing this out as we continue. And this is a real stretch, but also the fiery ices of hell and the hot flames of the Everflame. What if DM is the balance of that or something?
Balance. It goes back to that word that rings in her ear, the earth-shattering nature that it is for her. I'm going to even throw out that, how she's always about second chances, fifth chances. She sounds to me like this guard of, like you're saying, that go-between, where she is also someone who does grant people second chances. So that just feels so interesting that she has that characteristic that the Undying Fire also did. While reading these stories around the Everflame, DM comes across something very interesting, as if everything else hasn't been interesting yet. She learns about how pregnant mothers would risk their lives to travel the seas once labor began, believing a child born on the Everflame's blessed soil would be imbued with its sacred power of life. Oh my God! Yeah! Two things here. One, can you imagine being on a boat during labor?
No, I was just thinking about that. I was like, dang. That is the worst commute ever.
And they wouldn't even have the speedboats of Sophos because those were a recent invention, and those are only allowed to be used by the crowns. You better hope that baby's not on a slip and slide. Let's talk about this because the Everflame's blessed soil is right on Kareel, where the Kindred Temple is now standing. And where was Diem born? On Kareel!
This is extremely important. She is the only person in centuries, at the very minimum, most likely millennia, who has been born on this island. And on the day that Diem was born, there was a blood sun.
Yes, this could mean that she doesn't die at all. We've been speculating since literally episode 1. If, based off the prophecy, if there's a way that Diem is going to not make it out of this series alive. But like I've been adamant about, there's going to be some way that she cheats death or that she comes back. I think this is it.
I'm not sure if I'm quite on that hill yet with you. I do think that this is the reason that the Everflame spark responds to Diem when she goes to the Sophos library, instead of it being solely because she is a descendant of the red-haired man. It does seem very suspicious that her mother has the same hair as him, but I don't know if I'm willing to die on that hill yet. I also wonder if this is part of why Diem's feeling this burning within her, even back since Spark. Like, for example, how she has always described intimacy. There's some imbued magic of the Everflame within her. Even if by the time she was born, the Everflame was cut down, I don't think that matters. The soil is still there. I like to think its roots still exist beneath the Kindred Temple. Didn't her mother also have her like in the chamber below with Ophiuchi?
Correct.
So I don't know how that might play into this. But anyway, and if Diem does destroy the Kindred's temple by the end of Burn, maybe the Everflame can regrow.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Well, especially if she has the power of the Everflame, she can probably light the tree and it be the undying fire.
Oh, and then that also goes into how this could all be a major reason for the names of these books.
Yes!
Spark of the Everflame, Glow of the Everflame, Heat of the Everflame, Burn of the Everflame. It's all part of Diem's story. Her being of the Everflame in addition to the Kindred. And so this is her coming into her power, yes, as a Kindred, but also she has this sacred power of life from the Everflame within her as she comes into her own. She is the balance of the Kindred and the Everflame, the daughter of the Forgotten. Yes, the 10th Kindred, but also the Everflame, the ancient mortals. I have chills right now. This is why we do these deep dives.
I've been waiting for this episode for a reason. This is the reason.
Diem spends the whole afternoon looking over these old mortal books, lost in reading as much of a lifetime's worth of knowledge as she can. But she recognizes ancient mortal knowledge is not all that this library is about. As much as she's frustrated with the Kindred for what they've done to the mortals, she wants to learn a little more about them. After all, they seem to have a lot of interest in her. So yes, Diem, it is very important for you to maybe learn a little bit about them. Starting with a map! I'm so excited. This is the original map used by the Kindred themselves. The map they drew to create the realms of Amarian. Faint lines are still visible where old mortal borders had been erased and modified. Only one seems to have not been redrawn. Quote, a barely there scratch through the middle of Montios. As we will find out, the Kindred originally divided Amarian into 10 realms, one for each of the siblings. But when they sacrificed Omnos and recast the forging spell so there were only 9 Kindred and 9 realms, Omnos' northern realm absorbed into Montios. It's now known as the Forgotten Lands, because even those in Montios don't really go there. It doesn't feel quite right there. I can't wait to get into all of that in a few episodes when we go to these Forgotten Lands. At the center of this map, quote, more erased lines peeked out from where the Everflame had once been labeled, obscured by a rough sketch of what would become the Kindred's temple. This kind of avoids my earlier curiosity about the Kindred maybe not taking down the Everflame tree because of their connection with the mortals, but I also don't think we can trust Diem's narration here, as she goes on and on about the Kindred's divine egos and how they rebuilt the mortals' land in a homage to themselves. Yes, Montios says in her diary that her siblings like being considered gods here, but I think and I hope that we're going to learn more about the Kindred and the mortals' relationships, as well as how Omnos fits into all of that, and what happened on their homeland, where Omnos speaks of it with reverence and how it doesn't scare him like it should have. I can see the puzzle pieces, but I just don't have the full picture yet.
Finding a well-worn notebook on a lavender pillow, Diem picks it up. Hello, Diary of Montios.
I even love the little detail of it being on a lavender pillow because, lavender is Montios' color. And in this handwritten diary, there are no dates or sections.
Which is aggravatingly convenient. As you can probably assume, we are about to go line by line through this diary entry. So buckle up because this is our jam. Starting off with, quote, "The locals, too, are at war. The hate reminds us of home and all we have lost. It grieves me. I do not wish these people to know the despair we have seen." I would bet money this is the depicted image on the stained glass, these mortals at war at the entrance of the library. I truly think that this is why they deleted the old gods from memory, because the mortals were fighting over it. There was bloodshed, and as Montios is saying, this was reminding them of the homeworld, and they're trying to learn from those mistakes. So they're actually saying, let's start fresh, no gods.
I think you might be right, especially with the kindred being divine-like gods in and of themselves who are able to, from their version, help the mortals in that way.
I also want to just point out, raise your hand if you want to know what happened on the homeworld of the kindred. Oh my God! I can't believe I didn't get my gutsy pants on for this one and also ask Penn this question.
I want to know so badly, and I can't help but wonder if it'll be a theme of history repeating itself. No matter what world it is on or how much the kindred set up this world for peace, it goes back to its old violent ways eventually.
Yes. Next line, quote, "We try to help them with our gifts. We end their diseases and feed their hungry. They call us saviors and bow to us as gods. My siblings welcome it. I do not." All right, hold up, because I could absolutely see the kindred, minus Montios, and I want to say Lumnos too, wanting to start the world anew, like I said, with them as gods. So that's why they erased the name. So this is what I was saying earlier.
Exactly, yes, with thinking that this will be how the mortals can start fresh and have a peaceful world where history does not repeat itself.
And it's almost like the devil you know. If they think of us as gods, we know we're good, and we can create unity on this realm. Next section, quote, "They even gave us names in their language. They call me Montios for my love of their beautiful mountains." We've discussed this. Each of the kindreds had their own names in their home world that we don't know because we only know them by the names the mortals gave them that are based in Latin. Yet another sign that I think Ophiuchi was actually his name in the homeworld and Omnos is his Amarian name.
I find it very intriguing that the name Ophiuchi is derived from Ophiuchus, which is a large northern constellation that is represented by the figure of a man grasping a snake. So we can directly link Ophiuchi's name to astronomy, like a different world, like a different home world, and the north, a northern constellation, like where the Forgotten Lands are, where Omnos' realm used to be. Then there's all the symbolism of snakes throughout history. I could spend the entire episode talking about that, but the two big references that I can think of here are the dual expression of good and evil, like Ophiuchi and Diem, and the eternal cycle, which we've talked so much about how history is repeating itself. So either Ophiuchi is Omnos, or Omnos knows how to name his child very, very well.
Next, flipping to another page. Quote, "When Lumnos fell, it was expected. Her heart is a soft place where love thrives, nor were Miros or Umbrose any surprise. They are drawn to pleasure, and we have all been lonely for so long. My siblings and I warned them against their unions. Then our eldest fell, Sophos, our guiding light. I could not believe it." This gives us quite a timestamp.
So we can gather that this is after the kindred have been in Amarian for a while, but they have not tried to do any spells yet on themselves or the land to make it known as what it is today. We also get a little more insight into Lumnos from one of her siblings, and it's exactly in line with what we've come to know about Lumnos. Of all the kindred, she had the softest heart for the mortals. So here is Montios like, yeah, no surprise she fell in love with one. But Sophos, the eldest and the wisest of the kindred siblings, was indeed a surprise. I think the fact that these kindred are falling in love with mortals also shows that yes, they may be considered godlike figures here, but they are accessible, mingling, and considerable with the mortals.
Quote, "Though it may have been I who sealed our fate, I have always preferred solitude over the company of others. Once I found my love, that changed. When he and I steal away on Romari to the mountains, I feel the peace I have always longed for." This section's pretty self-explanatory, but it's also very sweet. And it's notable that I sealed our fate. Because it sounds to me like she was the last to fall in love, other than Omnos, obviously.
That's what I'm gathering from this too. This also gives us some insight into the kindred finding peace and love and harmony with the mortals, and how, because they found that for themselves, it's like they kind of project that that's how it can be for everyone as well. And so they did not have this crazy idealistic idea of having peace and harmony with the mortals and living side by side with them, because they were already experiencing that in their own day-to-day lives.
Quote, every day our beloveds age, the thought that haunts us all. Sophos believes there may be a way to bind their short lives to ours.
So the kindred originally planned to bind their mortals' short lives to the kindred's immortal lives, because they do not want their beloveds to grow old while they live for eternity. We have not heard about Phanos, Igneos, or Fortos yet here, but we can infer that at some point they had also fallen in love with mortals too, because that's how history goes and why they're a descendant of all the realms. I am so curious about how and why Sophos believes this. Is there a spell book that we're going to come across at some point? I realize that's way too straightforward, but I sense that there might be something along the lines to serve as a guide to do this very big magic separate from each of their elemental powers.
So this brings up a question. Do you think we're going to see this in real time with someone in our world? The only couple I can think of is either Luther and Diem, where Luther gets eternal life, if we're assuming Diem is that kindred lifespan.
I think that because she has mortal in her, she is not
That's true.
immortal. Yeah.
So then do you think that we could see that with Teller and Lily, where Teller gets a descended lifespan?
No.
Why?
I don't think that is I just think that it was something part of history that they thought was going to happen, and it didn't. It was kind of like they were trying to mess with immortality when that wasn't theirs to mess with.
And so instead it went the other direction. Oh, so unromantic, but fine. Next section, quote, whatever the cost is, I will pay it. An eternity with him is worth the highest price.
This is big news. And honestly, until I reread this for the deep dive, I forgot about this very important reveal that the kindred didn't do the forging spell to bind themselves to their lover's lifespan. It was supposed to be the other way around. So I do want to apologize for a few inaccurate things I've said leading up to this episode. That's just what everyone does, just think that the kindred bound themselves to their mortal's lifespan there. And that's just a key part of the kindred history at this point. But here in Montios' own handwriting, we learn the truth. The kindred tried to give their mortal lovers eternity with the kindred, and they were willing to pay the highest price. Whatever they did to make this happen, I'm going to guess didn't seem to work and had the opposite effect. Instead of them at the last minute, like switching and being like, okay, no, like we will have our lives be the same as theirs. I think something went wrong. Quote, Montios had hoped to give her lover eternal life. Instead, she'd sacrificed her own immortality to age and die at his side. She had indeed paid the ultimate price, but in a twisted way she hadn't expected. This is DM thinking this. I have two theories on this. Number one, the true nature of the spell, or whatever it is not to give the mortal eternity with the kindred, but rather give the kindred the lifespan to live out their days with their mortal lovers. So the theory is basically what DM is saying, that it is a twisted way of paying the ultimate cost. The kindred pay the price for their immortality to live their whole lives with their lovers. But I have a second theory too. Sophos' way of binding their mortal lovers required the high price of maybe cutting down the Everflame tree. It was like their lovers' sacrifice of their mortality to be immortal with their kindred loves. And the kindred underestimated the Everflame's power, or something to that effect. So instead of the kindred making their lovers immortal, they paid the price of messing with the balance of nature and the Everflame, and it backfired. Last episode, we speculated what the ancient wrong that must be righted could be when Lumnos tells Luther about that in his bonus chapter. What if this is the ancient wrong that must be righted? Or this has something to do with the kindred's curse, and the kindred's curse is tied to the kindred's short lives? Or, separate from the Everflame, the ancient wrong was how the mortals were supposed to be immortal and live side by side with their kindred. Now it's like things are not going to plan, so it's a wrong that must be righted. I think no matter what, DM is going to break this kindred's curse with her own sacrifice at the highest price, and the Everflame will play a big part of that. Oh. I was having so much fun with theories.
Oh my god, I don't have words. I just went dial tone. That was so epic. Oh my god, you're a genius. Okay, next, DM flips to the end of the book. So again, we're in a new timestamp. and she finds the final section ripped out of the notebook. Why are we not talking about this? What could be on that? My guess is that there's talk of Omnos on that piece of paper that was ripped.
Back with Papa Sorgil's research all over again. Yes, my guess is 1,000,000% that the pages ripped out had to do with Omnos, especially since when DM does go back a few pages from where it is ripped, the pages are literally talking about the youngest brother and how he is not scared of what happened on their homeland like he should be, and that Montios fears him. Do we think that these pages are lost to history, burned or gone, or something else? Or do you think that they still exist somewhere?
I don't. I think they're burned. Just with how it's so adamant that everything has been burned away. I'm sadly thinking that this is one of those things as well.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next, this reads, and remember, this is a new timestamp. Quote, the locals are grateful, though some resent our presence. Ooh, things have changed. They fear Lumnos' unborn child, as well as the life growing in Fortos' mate. What role will our descendants play in this new world?
So we're already starting to see a little unrest and uneasiness toward the kindred and their offspring. I will say this, not necessarily the kindred themselves, but their offspring, which are the descended.
Well, and there's mention of mates. It's already the descended language starting to overtake Amarian. They're not saying lover. They're not saying partner. They're not saying marriage. They're saying mate.
But do you think that they actually were able to become mates, like in the way that we know of with
Absolutely.
descended with mortals, though?
I think so.
So do you think that in the current world, a descended could mate with a mortal?
Yeah. Well, and I love this passage because of this whole quote, what role will our descendants play in this new world? And I want to just scream at Montios, like, if only you knew. But they're already seeing it.
I love these diary entries so much because we've only heard about all of this play out in historical references so far, with how the kindred made their offspring, the descended, the rulers to look over the mortals and this world and keep harmony and peace. But here we see before where they're just figuring out how their children, the descended, will fit into this new world, and they are questioning it themselves.
Well, I think they assumed that because when they came, the mortals welcomed them practically because they solved a lot of their problems. And so they were, they fell in love with mortals and now they're creating life with mortals. And I'm guessing that they assumed the mortals would feel exactly that same warm and fuzzy nature towards what we will now know as the descended. But it's almost like they probably saw it coming where those descendants would be revered higher above the mortals. There's
Exactly.
already a hierarchy coming in.
Exactly. So when the kindred came in, there's only 10 of them. And so it's kind of like they are just that much more godlike powerful, right? But now they've created a second middle ground. Yeah, they've created an in-between here. And guess what? That just pushed the mortals lower on the podium, right? Yeah.
Then there's the quote. There is a plan, but our youngest will not agree. So we know the youngest is Omnos because Montios is the second youngest kindred. But what is this plan she's referring to?
The forging spell.
Oh.
Or
Are we
at least-
positive of that?
Well, I think that it's a variation of it where the
Okay.
kindred ensure that when they die, their realms will pass to the strongest descendant and become the crown. And that's how the Wyverns will continue to protect generations of the kindred's lineage. So I think that is what this plan is. But I'm guessing Omnos doesn't want to agree because he's like, fuck no, I'm the only one without a lover or offspring. I don't need this. And maybe he's thinking he can rule over them all once he outlives his siblings and they aren't there to defend their half kindred, half mortal offspring. I'm not entirely sure how the plan would directly impact him since he does not have any children, but it could absolutely involve a way of limiting his own magic and more specifically his power.
Well, I think you're right on the money here. I think he assumed that if he outlived all of his siblings, who would be the ruler of all of Amarian? Omnos.
Yes.
And if they're putting in these forging spells where it's instead divided into 10 different sections, he would only be...
Well, 9 in that way.
Well, 9 in that way. He would only be the ruler of his small little section, and then they obviously even took that away from him. So,
well, and then he would have to be literally dealing with lesser people because the descendant
In
are
his
not the
eyes.
kindred.
Exactly.
Which also explains why Ophiuchi hates the descended so much. They
Yes.
are the reason his father or his siblings wanted to do some plan that he did not agree to.
Bingo. Yes.
As far as like timeline with which forging spells and all that kind of stuff, I know it's a little bit confusing. So as I understand it, the kindred already have their realms created. That might have happened when they bound themselves to their mortal loves' lives. I'm not exactly sure. Hence why Montios is referring to this new world, and the forging spell originally did include Omnos' realm. Yeah. That's why the forging magic feels weird there. Mm-hmm. So maybe this plan is how they can create magical boundaries where the descendant can only use their magic in their own realms, as well as like all the eye color stuff and the crowns and the Gryverns, like all the things that we now know of today as like the final part 2 of the forging spell here. That's my understanding.
Next section, quote, "Our lives are shorter now. We must persuade him, Omnos, before our time expires." I don't think this happened. I don't think any persuasion happened, or he lied and now he's like, I don't think this happened.
Well, I think it did, but they did it after they got rid of Omnos. Because the Sophos Crown will later tell Diem, quote, "There are references to the kindred making a great personal sacrifice to protect the mortals after the forging. The details were lost to history, but over the years, some Sophos Crowns speculated that sacrifice was Omnos." Then Doriel will go on to say, quote, "He was the only kindred who did not take a mate, so he never gave up his immortality like the others. He would have lived forever. And if he was immune to magic and could also steal their magic, ... I can see how that might make even the kindred scared. Perhaps they feared what he might do once they were gone," which Montios confirms in the next line of her journal entry.
Which states, quote, "I confess some days I fear him, Omnos. What happened in our homeland did not scare him, as it should have. Instead, he speaks of it with reverence." Bad, this is bad. We know that in the homeland there was destruction, and based off how Montios was connecting it to the Amarian locals being at war, and how she mentions there was hate at home, we can infer that there was some major war discourse against at least 2 groups of people back in their homelands. And so is she saying here how Omnos looked at war and liked it? Checks out based on how Ophiuchi is running the show in the Forgotten Lands. He thrives off hate more than anything.
I think that the kindred end up doing the plan, which is the foraging spell that establishes the descendant as heirs to the realm crowns and the Terramare and all those realm magical boundaries to help ease the tension with the mortals who are a little nervous about these new magical beings that will coexist with them. But Omnos never agrees to the plan because it creates limitations for himself. So to protect the world from him after they are gone, the kindred sacrifice Omnos and then execute their plan.
I'm hung up on that word, sacrifice Omnos, because I mean, we can both agree we don't think Omnos is dead. We think Omnos is Ophiuchi, yes?
Yes. So I don't know if like there had to be an actual sacrifice where they had to get rid of one of their own in order for this to work, like that kind of like magical element behind it. I think that potentially they are using the word sacrifice because it is a softer word of eliminating him so that they could follow through with their plan. But because in their eyes, it is sacrificing their youngest brother, who is a danger to this world that they are creating with the mortals.
You mean by them not giving him a slice of the world, that was the sacrifice?
I think they thought that they got rid of him.
Maybe he went back to the homeworld for a second and then came back to Amarian?
Or somehow laid low. I don't know how in the world he would lay low. It was so long, but...
Oh my God. All right. There's this last line, quote, "Even our and then Diem is interrupted by fucking Simon. So, M-O, the M is capitalized. Add this to the list of shit that you've done that is just unforgivable, Simon. And I need the answers to this now. The only word I can imagine this being is mother. So it's even our ma, because that would be capitalized. But what? Because what does this have to do with anything? I'm so lost. I love this book. Oh my God.
So even her mother would definitely make the most sense, like you're saying here, given the context and especially that capitalization. About these 10 siblings, it's like, because we're already talking about these 10 siblings and how Montios fears the youngest brother. But if Montios is writing mother, that does, of course, bring up the question, the kindred had a mother, which with them being siblings, like biologically it makes sense. But my bigger question is here on Amarian? Or maybe their mother is still connected to their home world. Or Montios is referring to their mother in a past tense from when they were on their home island.
That's what I assumed.
Maybe the mother is the moon, Nicole.
No, it can't be.
No, I'm kidding.
You asshole.
Or Diem is actually representative of the kindred mother and not just a daughter of Omnos. But why would a page after this be ripped out? Is it specifically information taken regarding their mother and like the higher divinity than the kindred? Did the same person rip this out who burnt the old gods' names in that documentation, or was this even more recent? Did Yrselle rip it out herself to be found later by her worthy heir? Or maybe she ripped it out after they imprisoned Ophiuchi to help ensure he is forgotten to history, which would definitely lean more into the idea that Ophiuchi is Omnos, which I do think that if that is the case, Yrselle knows. Okay, I can feel myself slipping down a rabbit hole. I gotta pull myself out.
I'm definitely team she meaning Montios is referring to the mother on the home planet. But the way that this sentence flows, it sounds like she's referring to something their mother would have said recently, because she's talking about discourse between her siblings. So it's almost like referring to even our even our mother would have agreed, or even our mother would have, well, I don't know,
because they're talking about on the home planet.
Yeah,
and so
right,
I wonder if she's like, even like if it's something along the lines of like, even our mother back home was concerned about him with all of this.
Yeah, definitely. Which that's some little sibling energy if I've ever heard it. Long story short, we think we're coming back to this exact library in Bern. Maybe to read more books. Maybe she'll connect something from something she read in Sophos with her new photographic memory with her Sophos magic. Maybe this is where the Rosebane is. Maybe to read more diaries, like the one that has the fucking missing page that makes me want to just...
Here's another crack theory of mine. What if Ophiuchi somehow gets in here during the attack the following day? And when Diem comes back, it's like all ransacked and all the most important books, including this diary, will be gone or burned. Oh, my heart couldn't take that. Do you think, okay, scratching that theory. I think that Diem is absolutely going to learn more in here. She will remember that there is essential information in here and come back to track it down. Maybe she'll be like, oh, maybe I should like read the other pages in Montios' diary too. Well, and then based on what Penn literally just told us a few minutes ago, is that we're going to learn so much more about the old mortal religions. I think that we are going to get a lot more in here from that.
Yes. Well, and as the new Queen of Umbrose at the end of this book, Diem technically owns this library. And she's also still got the key to it that Yrselle gives it to her.
Yes, good thing Yrselle thought to give her the key because, yep, she knows this is about to be Diem's library.
Jumping ahead a little bit, but when they get home from Umbrose and are settling healthily back into the Lumnos Palace, Diem takes the key from the Umbrose Crown Library from her bandeau that miraculously doesn't come off in the battle we're covering later this episode, because yeah, we still have that to do. And she throws it into the back of her wardrobe.
And then we have to remember that as she's leaving this library, Diem thinks that there is something that she read that is gnawing at her, but she can't place what it is. I'm guessing that it's what she read in Montios' diary about the youngest brother, because she will bring that up later to Luther. And maybe her intuition, her godhood, her Umbrose magic, whatever, is picking up on the fact that there is much more that she needs to uncover.
Well, when she hears Omnos for the first time from Doriel, it's like this like moment where it's like her godhood knows, and I think that's exactly what it is. Her godhood's like, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. I also wonder if Yrselle will leave a note for Diem in the library after Diem leaves. And she knows that this is her last chance to pass vital information to Diem, so she has to assume and hope that Diem will return to the libraries. Or maybe she'll like just have like a few books out that are like, here's the answers, Diem. My God.
Honestly, she's kind of pissed at Diem right now. I could see her writing just this blatant fuck you and everything you stand for, and then leaving out the books because she knows that that's
or
the
it'll just
good.
be like extra cryptic, just as a nice little extra fuck you. Like Nicole mentioned, Simon interrupts Diem's time here in the library to escort her back to her quarters so that she can start prepping for dinner. Side note, should we be worried about the dried blood all over Simon? That he's like, don't worry about it. It's just from someone who should have known better than to cross the Queen of Umbrose. I'm taking this as like another flex of power, reminding Diem how powerful their queen is and that she shouldn't cross her.
I took it as exactly that. I feel like it's another reminder to hammer in, hey, the thing you're gonna do tonight, it's bad. Like, it is, you have a lot of danger that you are in.
Anyway, whoever that poor person was, we commend their souls to Malik, whoever they were. But Simon's not just here to help Diem stay timely for dinner. He has to pick up two of his centenaries in their guest wing of the palace, who, you see, were caring for one of the Lumnos guests all afternoon. L for you, Simon, for purposefully leading Diem to believe the worst of Luther. But maybe, this is Simon's way of trying to help Luther and make Diem not love him so much when he dies so that she won't be sad. Just kidding. He's being such a dick, and this is his idea of fun. Speaking of fun, 2 female centenaries leave, yep, you guessed it, Luther's room. Oh, no! Talking about how much fun they had and how huge his scar and other things are. And oh no, oh dear, Simon realizes he shouldn't have let Diem see that. Luther had, after all, asked for her not to be told. Okay, so obvious statement here. Anyone in this situation would come to the conclusion that Luther was intimate all afternoon with these 2 women. That's literally what they and Simon are happily leading Diem to assume without outright lying. And poor Diem is devastated, to put it very mildly. Her first reaction is, no, this cannot be what it seems. Good for you, girl. That's the growth from glow shining through. But Luther's also been really weird since Umbrose, avoiding Diem's touch and distancing himself from her, just to name a few tiny little things. So understandably, Diem can't help but second guess her and Luther now. He said she deserved more. Maybe he can't give her more. After all, he had been with Ileana and he didn't have love for her. If Luther does want someone to touch him, does he need it to be without emotion or any strings attached? Is this why he can't be more with Diem? He's let her in so many ways, but maybe this is where he draws the line at intimacy. So, he had to get his fill of pleasure with no strings attached from others.
But we know our Luther much better than that. It turns out that at the bathhouse where Yrselle sent him and all of the other Lumnos descended, Luther collapsed and the 2 centenaries brought him back, aka also why they saw him naked. Then the Umbrose Queen sent for 2 healers, which was quite nice of her, one from Fortos and one a mortal healer. And both agreed that nothing could be done. So the 2 centenaries who are leaving are not discussing their wild rumble in the sheets with the prince. They are referring to seeing him naked at the bathhouse and in his room while he was being examined. And the reason Luther is staring up at the ceiling is because he, again, just received the very grim odds of, sorry buddy, but you're gonna die.
Later on their way to dinner, Diem will confront Luther that he was not at the bathhouse like he's saying that he was. In fact, she shares way more calmly than I would have, that he was occupied with 2 centenary women. Oh! Luther is just horrified, and he tries figuring out how in the world to talk his way out of this without revealing the truth, because apparently he doesn't want to tell her the truth anymore. His inability to give her a proper response, however, and his anguish, and how he ultimately brushes Diem off with formality, well, that just reinforces what it already looks like. And Diem asks the question all the readers are wondering at this point. What happened to you? What happened to Luther? What happened to these 2 together? She is so hurt and confused by him trying to get answers. And he just answers vaguely, you'll understand soon. May I please just give Luther one more L? I get at this point, he has pretty much given up on getting Diem back home to Lumnos before he dies. And he knows that if he shares what's going on at this point, she will do exactly what she does end up doing, which is leave Umbrose early and not get the answers that she needs. At this point, Luther is like, well, we made our bed. I'm going to lie in it and die.
This hurts my heart, but I am going to retweet the L because especially after the Desire speech last episode, he was basically saying she is his life's blood. And now he's just at peace with her believing that he cheated on her. Again, I get that his internal tennis match is happening with the Godstone and all of that is trying to fuck with his head. And I would be so exhausted if I was Diem with this. Diem may be having an existential crisis about her relationship, but she looks fabulous. She's dressed to the nines, and as Zeleric puts it, she's finally wearing a dress befitting of her status. The Centenaries dressed her in a sheer black gossamer, draped to cover as little as possible, with a plunging neckline that drops all the way to her navel and a slit that nearly runs up to her ribs. Not to do this again, but what's the underwear situation here? This dress has an array of tiny glittering rubies that resemble blood after a gruesome kill. Oh, it's violent, it's sexual, it's perfectly suited for the court of Umbrose. Aha! Almost like Yrselle planned this. She knows Diem is about to be her successor. So it's almost like this dress is her way of saying wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Diem, hey, you're about to be the queen of this land. It's time you look like it.
Yes, exactly. Also, where were the attendants helping Diem prepare for all of her Lumnos events? Here in Umbrose, she had centenaries bathing and dressing her, fixing her up, and she didn't have that in Lumnos. My headcanon is that she denied any help then, because that feels like something Diem would do in her early crown days.
I definitely agree that sounds about right. I will also point out that could be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the Eleanor's evil crack theory that I have, where Eleanor set them all away.
I missed that!
Next episode. The others are all dressed in Lumnos traditional blue and silver, including Zelaric. Luther is characteristically formal in a high neck brocade jacket, even with formal dress gloves. Obviously, these are hiding his injuries. Alix is in a kicking ass flesh-colored bodysuit with strategically placed diamond clusters and a navy overcoat that trailed in a pool behind her. Alix is my type, dude. I love her. Taryn is wearing breeches of blue-black leather and no shirt. Instead, he wears a harness of straps and chains that leave his tanned muscles on display. His Godstone injury is now nearly gone. Hooray. And Zelaric is showing off his Lumnosian heritage with an open vest and billowing pants that are entirely fabricated from shadow magic, with glowing light-made cuffs snaking up his forearms. Epic!
I love it! But there is one thing we cannot forget about this fit watch, because earlier, Yrselle insisted Diem wear her crown. I'm sorry, I can't ever say that without thinking of miscongeniality. In other words, make it appear above her head. Since remember, she's been hiding it since she was escaping with Breck back at the Guardians camp in Umbrose. And even Diem still hasn't gotten a good look at her crown in the mirror since it's back above her head. Though as her group of friends comment here, the crown looks different than they've ever seen it before. And then remember how Yrselle gazed at it earlier and saying like, oh, marvelous, and seeming like she knew something that Diem didn't? Well, Diem's crown is different than it was before her coronation ceremony. And it has nothing to do with the coronation attempt itself like Diem is thinking here. The dark, thorny circlet of the Lumnos crown with glittering points of light has transformed. Now with its circular peak mirroring the opposite direction, like a mountain, and shards of broken crystals seem to form and dissolve at random between the glimmering light. Yes! Ice! Put it all together and you get the Montios crown. Once again, I am just so obsessed with magic in this world and how these two crowns have fused together to create something new. Even in Diem and Luther's visions, he has said her crown looks like something he's never seen before. And he's starting to understand just how unique and part of all the realms she is, even before seeing the combined crown atop her head now. This is not even the same crown that he has seen in the vision. That vision crown has more crowns. Last thing I want to mention about this fit watch is again how much we see Diem's attire serve as a mask and a part for her to play. She may look fierce like a predator on the hunt, rawr, but inside she feels wrecked and vulnerable because of Luther refusing to talk to her and seeming to have two other women in his room. She's making herself embrace what she did back in Glow, when she was out of her element and feeling so raw but knew she had to keep going. I just love seeing like what we've already seen in Glow, because we've seen a lot of different things than Glow. It's like, it's like nice to kind of get these little, I'll call them anchors here.
Yeah. Now that everyone is dressed and starting to feel the effects of Taryn behind an open bar, it is dinner time. To the dining room! Seated at a long, narrow table, and by long, I mean considerable length. It stretches the length of the room and is piled high with an arrangement of food, flowers, and candles. Yrselle and Diem sit across from each other in the middle at the places of honor, and on Yrselle's right is Simon, who is across the table from Luther, who's on Diem's left. A strategic move, no doubt. Taryn is on the other side of Luther. Then Alix and Zelaric are on Diem's right. I love that Taryn and Zelaric are literally sitting on opposite ends of their little group huddle. It's so on brand. The rest of the table is filled with all the centenaries. Every one of them. All 100 mind-reading, game-playing, lust-filled descended. This dining table fits literally 106 people. That's stupid. stupid. But wait, if the centenaries are all here, who's watching the ports or guarding the city? Well, that's easy. Lumnos Descended are hired to craft an illusion of centenaries throughout the city. And normally it's Zelric, who's one of these Lumnos Descended, who creates an illusion of a centenary to collect the tariffs at the port. But after he always does that, his memory is erased. Obviously, he's not doing that tonight because he's sitting here in this room. Again, it's just showing that power that for the centenaries, it's normal and valid. Well, it's literally them overtaking someone's body and then erasing it for them from their memory without their permission. God.
Okay, so here's how I see it. It's using the Lumnos Descended, like Zelric, to create an illusion on themselves so they look like the centenaries. And, like, I'm under the impression that Zelric, when he's doing this, knows about this job, but then his memory is erased.
Yes.
So it's, like, without his permanently remembered permission.
Yes.
So I do think
I
that this
take
is
us out without consent.
No, but okay, so here's how I see it, is that, like, this is one of the jobs that Zelric does. And in the moment, he knows what he is going to be doing, and then it is erased from his memory.
Yes. And he does it multiple times over, and he
Yes.
never remembers himself doing it.
Yes.
Are you justifying this use of magic?
I'm not saying that they are being, I don't know, or I don't think that they're being completely controlled. I think that it is a job that they sign up to do, and then it is erased from their memory afterward.
Yes.
That sounds like a secret mission to me.
Erased from their memory, so they never remember doing it. So Zelric is hearing about this for what feels like the first time at a table in front of 105 other people, and everyone's laughing because, ha ha ha, he doesn't remember. And he's like,
yeah, that's not okay. But I don't think that they take over their minds and make them do it in the first place.
I think that's ambiguous on purpose because they do not say willingly or anything. So I think that's supposed to be ambiguous.
I agree. I would just like to think that they give Descended all these other jobs, right, in the city, and that's why it's such a great melting pot. And so they're not making them do these other things. It's like part of them just like getting a living. And Zelric knows that he does a lot of jobs that are shady. And so this is one of those jobs. And he didn't realize how shady it was. This makes the Centenaries and the goings on in Umbrose just all the more unique and intriguing. Yes, even if it is bad. This is such a useful Lumnos light magic skill, and yet we really don't see it used like this until Heat. So, number one, is this illusionist magic used more often in Lumnos than we think? Or maybe it's taboo to use there, and they just kind of have different rules of it in the realm? Because even Alix, she can hide somebody, but she doesn't make them look like somebody else like Zelric can do. And then that brings me to number two, is it's so out of the box of traditional Lumnos magic wielding that it's almost like this type of magic is, I'll call it discovered here. Not literally, but you know what I mean? Like it's just not known of in Lumnos because it is, they like their boxes there. And number three, maybe Zelric teaches all the other Lumnos Descended how to use this magic. Or one of them taught him how to do it.
See, I think that because in Lumnos, half-mortals are so taboo, they're either killed or they're sent elsewhere to places like Umbrose where they're more powerful. And then that is where they have to learn on their own. Like we know Zelric is self-taught. So it's almost like the only limit is their imagination and obviously their power. So I think that the reason that it's used in Umbrose is because there's more half-mortals here. There's more creativity, like you were saying in option 2. But like we've suspected, half-mortals, half-descended are more powerful and they're more populated in Umbrose because of obvious reasons we've talked to death on this podcast. Basically, this dinner is a lot and made even more a lot with Terran starting a one-man drinking game, and he's absolutely shit-faced as a result. If Simon pokes at Luther, a small sip. Someone gloats about how the queen has absolute control of her city, take a drink. A centenary propositions one of the crew for sex, finish the glass. I do want to point out that since we have the extra context from Terran's bonus chapter, he was saying that DM has not looked at him with that judgment that everyone else does around his drinking, but he was waiting for it to happen. She kind of does judge him before dinner. She asks him, only half joking, if anyone has ever told him he has a drinking problem. While we don't know what's going on in Terran's head in this scene, I wonder if some of this drinking game is from he just getting that reassurance of everyone thinking that he's a total fuck up. And he's going to drown himself in alcohol as a result. If everyone's going to think that, he might as well prove them right.
We have to bring up practically every little thing that Yrselle says, and I have another one for us. As the Centenaries explain that they can do anything to the mind when you control it. You can make someone say or do anything, believe they're someone else, replace emotions with pain or pleasure, erase or create memories, turn against loved ones. Before I keep going, quick pause. Knowing that Yrselle's Centenaries will be killed, it is very possible that DM will be one of the only or the only person with Umbrose magic by the end of Heat. So all this talk and potential foreshadowing about how Umbrose magic can turn the tides of a war, do we think we'll see DM use this on, say, Vance or Ophiuchai's army?
Yes.
I don't think, I don't think it'll work long since Ophiuchai can combat her like no one else can, but it's something to think about, like using this Umbrose controlling magic for the greater good, for working toward peace. Except it doesn't last, so it would be a very temporary plan. But anyway, that's not what this is about here. Yrselle warns DM that she can make DM into a walking corpse, and once a mind is crushed, there is no saving it. Quote, even Blessed Father Umbrose cannot restore what no longer exists. And DM knows it's a message and a warning of a different kind. I'm waving my hands in the air and yelling foreshadowing here. Would DM have the, for lack of a better word, stomach to do something like this to someone? Could she accidentally do this to someone? Is it how she potentially defeats her father? We know that this is possible, essentially taking someone's soul away from them, everything that makes them who they are, and leaving only the husk of themselves left. Yrselle literally does go on to say that DM does not understand now, but she will. What if this happens to one of DM's loved ones and she has to give them a death? I have so many questions on half-baked theories here.
Oh, see, I was definitely team she would do this to Ophiuchai.
Real quickly, I will say, too, that he can use the same kind of magic that she can. So
True.
She could try to use it on him. I don't know if it would work.
What I could see is this is presented at, I'll call it like one of her options to use with Ophiuchai as as a part of warfare. I agree with you. He would be able to push her out of his mind. I don't think she would do this. I think she would see this as more cruel than death. I would hope so, because this is just them literally, like you're saying, like if this happens to a loved one of hers, I don't see her not killing them to put them out of that misery. That sucks. Oh, God.
Or what if Ophiuchai has this power to do it to somebody else?
Guarantee you he probably does. So that's deeply concerning. But what's that smell, DM? DM smells flame root. Stop, everyone! And Lexi, do you want to guess what stop is written in?
What, Nicole?
Italics! The word in italics explodes in DM's head and turns out everyone else's as well, with 105 others at the table instantly stilling, including Yrselle. Allow me to hit the nail on the head. This is a big deal. Not only for DM to command so many people to just stop, but for her to command another queen, the most powerful in the realm, one of the most powerful crowns in Amarian, the one who is supposed to have an impenetrable shield. DM penetrated it. But something else could be quite odd about this exchange. Why is the Queen of Umbrose trying to drug DM and co with flame root? We don't really get a straight up answer other than Yrselle applauding DM for being more clever than she thought. So the best way that I can think about this is it was a test for DM. Like, be smarter than when we first met, child kind of test.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. But also she does know that there's going to be an attack on her city the next day.
Yeah!
So that's quite the bet on her realm that DM's not going to drink this flame root. Though my guess is it's just like a little bit of flame root. Because remember, we're used to like 3 spoonfuls full of the Guardians.
Christ.
I'll have to keep an eye on Terran to see if he says anything about like how long its effects last. Because he does say he can feel the nullification still right before their escape later this night. But that's not a very long time, right? So, yeah.
Well, speaking of Terran, DM's yelling stop was right on time for everyone except for Taryn, who swallowed his entire glass before the command went out.
With the Umbrose Queen playing literal mind games with DM, DM thinks about wanting to craft a mental shield, and her godhood responds, immediately taking action to do just that, a mental shield, where the Umbrose magic can't get into her mind to begin with. Quote, pulsing ice and fire against the inside of my temples. I wonder if this is her Umbrose magic creating a mental shield, as we know the most powerful can do, or is this her special magic? I'm going to go with Umbrose, even with the ice and fire descriptions we get here. But more importantly, now with the mental shield, the buzz around the room, all these noises she's been hearing ever since she arrived in Umbrose are gone. And this is the moment she realizes, holy shit, I have Umbrose magic. We've been getting lots of hints, some subtle and some not whatsoever, that DM has this magic since crossing the realm's border. I say this is the moment she realizes, but it's more like she did know before, but now is when she is consciously aware of exactly what she can do. While this Umbrose magic capability unsettles her, it's also intriguing, which doesn't surprise me at all about DM. She has been kept in the dark with too many secrets kept from her all her life. Like you were saying earlier, Nicole, about how the idea of not having secrets kind of sounds nice to her. This series is all about those secrets unraveling. The idea of no secrets from her is kind of a nice concept. Even though she won't feel like she can morally use it on loved ones, this is a very handy magic to have, to sway people, to check for lies, to uncover secrets, to communicate. I would be intrigued to DM. Earlier in this chapter stretch, the Lumnos group was saying how DM's powerful aura is something like they've never felt before. And DM is the strongest ascendant any of them have ever seen, stronger than seems possible. She instinctively wanted to deny it. After all, she has spent her life living in delulu denial that she is a half-mortal. She thought about how she wanted to be brave enough, strong enough to face the truth. Well, this is DM beginning to finally face the truth. She won't understand she has all the magic of the realms she has visited until they're escaped on Sarai later, but here, she's starting to put the pieces together.
With a new, notably not poisoned Gardancium bottle, one of the centenaries that was in Luther's room earlier that DM has so kindly decided to call Hagface suggests they play the mirror game. Here's how this game works. The centenaries or the queen will ask a question and our group has to answer the question. And if they answer truthfully, nothing happens. But if they lie, which all of the Umbrose magic people in the room will be able to tell, the centenaries drink. The purpose of this game, according to Hagface, is to reveal who you truly are. But Yrselle jumps at this game very quickly. Since DM's arrival, she's been testing her soon-to-be successor, ensuring that DM is indeed up to the task of being the savior of the world. And this would absolutely fall into that category. And just to edge DM on a little bit more, if DM decides to play, Yrselle will answer DM's question about Yrselle and the upcoming war. I can also imagine that the centenaries are jumping for joy, specifically Simon, at wondering how on earth Luther is going to handle this game, because they all know he has a Godstone wound and he hasn't told them.
So let's open the mirror game with question number 1. If Blessed Mother Lumnos gave you the power to decide which of you wore the crown, who would you choose? First of all, I believe Yrselle is asking this question to get a gauge on the real loyalty of DM's inner circle. Do they truly believe DM is their best fit for the crown? As well as to hear DM's response. Does she believe she should have the crown? So let's go through everyone's responses, and this is not in order. First, we have Luther, who obviously says DM. Then Zalaric says himself. Not a surprise, considering he knows himself best and only trusts himself. Then Taryn says, Queenie! Lou never wanted the crown, and DM makes his father miserable. That and Queenie is a much better nickname than Kingy. Kingy. Sounds like kinky.
I know, right?
Obviously very good reasons to choose DM for the crown instead of Luther. But also it does show how well he knows Luther and would not want to make him king if, Luther doesn't want it. Okay, DM didn't want it either, but that's, different. DM says Luther. Again, not a surprise after everything we went through with her in Glow. Like, that was basically her inner monologue for half of the book. And how DM does genuinely believe he is the better candidate to be the crown of Lumnos. Yrselle scrapes at her mental walls to confirm this truth, but it feels distant this time, muffled and frail. She is not able to get past DM's mental shield, which is... oh shit! She's supposed to be able to get through everyone's.
I do wonder if Yrselle wanted this to be DM's answer, or if she wanted DM to have the confidence to believe in herself to say herself. So I wonder if this is also her testing to be like, fucking really? Is that your answer?
Dia might let Yrselle in for a moment so she can confirm this is the truth, but especially after that flame root stunt, she does not trust the Umbrose Queen. Then we have Alix, who answers Diem. And apparently that's the first lie of the night. Oh. I do think that Alix thought her answer of Diem was true, but then she gets called out, and even poor Alix is like, wait, what? Like, yes, it is true. Ultimately, Alix does think that Luther is more well-known and respected, as well as level-headed and capable of leading an army in wartime. She does believe this of herself, too. And while Diem has proven that she is a strong leader, deep down, Alix believes that there is someone else in their group who is better equipped to be the leader needed right now, and that is Luther.
Oh, that's gotta sting. Not because Diem feels like Alix is wrong, and not because we think Alix is wrong, but because Diem knows that she's right. Alix is thinking deep down every self-deprecating thought that Diem has inside her own head. And to hear that someone you love and trust so deeply thinks these things about you, yeah, that would really fucking hurt. And I also really commend Diem, though, for not shutting Alix out or feeling weird around her for very long after this. Like, I feel like that's very mature of Diem.
Yes, definitely. And that's really her and Alix's whole relationship, right? Yeah. Hagface butts in with the next question to, just stir the pot and maybe get under Diem's skin. She's definitely having fun messing with Diem. Who in this room do you most wish to have in your bed?
Luther, rather than stating the obvious, says that there's only one person he desires in his bed, and she should know who he is. Me? Luther? Really? Oh my god, you shouldn't have. Jokes aside, everyone jokes that they already know who this she is, but honestly, Luther, my guy, it would not have killed you, to say it out loud, because naturally this answer just pisses Diem off. And how can she know if Luther is talking about her if he's constantly pushing her away? Or if he's making her think that he cheated on her with 2 women earlier this day? Like, I love you, Luther, so much, but I am 100% Team Diem here. Speaking of Diem, what does her and her temper say is her answer? It is that she will only welcome a man who desires her and who wants her there. And as she's come to learn, those are 2 different things. Burn! If that didn't already make Luther go, okay, ow, then when Simon volunteers as tribute to be that person in Diem's bed, Diem says a casual quote, "We'll see where the night takes us." And a pulse of energy explodes through the room. Yeah, Luther is pissed.
Can I give a gold star to Diem for how she is handling thinking that her man has cheated on her?
Absolutely.
She is handling this with grace and pettiness that I love.
And here's the deal. Yes, Luther is wounded. Yes, he's dying. But she doesn't know that. And
we don't as the reader.
We don't as the reader
to know this yet. Yeah.
And he seemed like he was having a threesome earlier this day. I'm sorry. I'm so Team Diem here. And I will say this moment where Luther's aura pulses through the room, it's moments like this where I fucking love the jealousy trope. Oh, it's delicious. But God, let's move on to a less dramatic answer. Alix says that she would be happy to have any of the centenaries in her bed tonight. Or all of them. The more the merrier. Fucking get it, girl. Holy shit, I love her. I will not have a crush on Alix. Calm down, Nicole. Taryn, however, in an attempt to claim the same sex orgy that Alix did, the lie detector goes off. It's the second lie of the night. He amends that only, I guess, half of them. Sorry, ladies. Lie alarm goes off again. Okay, fine. He can't just pick one. They're all so handsome. Again, another lie. He doesn't technically say it because admitting that Zellerich is the one he wants in his bed is way too vulnerable for him right now. After all, remember, Zellerich sold them out and betrayed them, and Taryn is still pissed about it. I think that Taryn is trying to convince himself that this is the true answer, but obviously all of the centenaries know that that is not correct.
Well, even at the skin markets, he was trying to kind of find somebody who he might want. It's I don't want anybody else.
I know,
just
right?
want this guy right here.
I love it.
Speaking of this guy right here, you want to know Zalerich's response? With all due respect to the 2 beautiful queens, he'd be better off alone than with anyone else here. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Shadowy pants on fire. Taryn asks if none of them are good enough for him. And Zeleric's like, no, and he's caught in another lie. Basically, he is lying for the exact same reason that Taryn is. These two want each other so badly. And after they fight a lot, they're gonna hook up, as DM will find out when she bangs on Taryn's door later, and he's like got a little pillow over his penis. And finally, we get to Yrselle's last question, the final question of the mirror game. The palace is burning, and you can only save one other person. Who do you choose? Okay there, this game just got a lot more serious, and don't think for a second Yrcelle didn't do this on purpose. She is asking DM a variation of her earlier question. What is DM willing to do, to give, to sacrifice for the sake of humanity?
She just won't stop testing DM. And honestly, I get it. She wants to make sure that DM is exactly who Father Umbrose told her she would be. At least that's my assumption. So let's start with Zeleric's answer. Who does he choose, DM or Yrselle? Well, shit. This was the exact situation that DM did not want him to be in when he said he would join the game. But he answers with a truthful, he's only saving himself, which has the whole room in silence. Zeleric just basically said that he wouldn't save either of his queens. And in Umbrose, that's not good. Luckily, Yrselle seems to be having a good hair day, because all she does is laugh and praises Zeleric for his response. And DM agrees. She'd rather have his honesty than his loyalty. Ooh, which makes Luther stiffen. Yeah, bud, feeling guilty now? The irony is that DM didn't even mean to poke Luther with this one, but she's not mad that it did. Again, I totally agree with you. I love how she's handling in this. Next, Alix, do you save DM or... She doesn't even wait for Yrselle to finish the question before answering, my queen. Looks like someone's feeling rather guilty from the first question's situation. Especially when she notably exhales when Yrselle declares her answer as truth. I really do feel for Alix. Like, she was trying to convince herself, like you were saying, like she thought that her answer with saying that DM was the best for the crown, she thought it was right. And she feels like she can't trust her own head now because these people can wiggle their way through it. Next is Taryn, his queen or Luther. Easy. He would pick DM. Not because of the fear of looking bad from Alix's answer, or because he knows Luther would murder him if he grabbed his friend over his queen. No, instead, it's because Taryn also took an oath to serve DM. And while he may be slurring his words as he says this, you can feel the hurt that he has, that he's not being taken as seriously as a member of her council. Luther's answer is also easy. It's DM, obviously. But what about DM? Who will live and who will burn? Burn is in italics. Hello, foreshadowing for the next book, where this is going to be such a huge theme. Who will live and who will burn? But this answer is tricky because DM can't just name one person, not even Luther, because that would all be a lie. She would find a way to save them all, or she would die trying.
And honestly, none of us would expect any other answer from DM for every single reason we have discussed throughout this whole deep dive. So, what's Yrselle's reaction to this very pointed question she asked of DM? Well, she declares DM answer wins the game. No mirror could look deeper than that. Based on DM and Yrselle's earlier discussion about sacrificing your soul and paying the ultimate price, do you think DM's answer here that she would save everyone or die trying is in line with her earlier answer everything, or do you think it's the opposite? Because to me, on the one hand, it seems right up the alley of DM's first answer to Yrcelle. She's ready and willing to die for the cause. In this case, die in the burning building for her loved ones to have a hope of survival. But Yrcelle said earlier that's the easy answer. Is DM willing to sacrifice her loved ones, be the one to put them in their graves? To which this isn't DM willing to make those hard sacrifices. This is literally her essentially saying, I will die for the cause. And Yrcelle's like, that's not what I'm asking. But I will say this is DM thinking differently. She's not willing to make those hard sacrifices because she always tries to find another way. And maybe Yrcelle's like, okay, we do need that. Like, we do need some of this out of the box thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know. These two conversations feel so closely connected, but also very conflicting.
I think in order to answer the question of, is it in alignment with what Yrcelle was asking earlier with the everything answer versus is it not in alignment, we would need to know what's happened. Like, what's the driving force to get out of the burning palace? Like, for instance, is it because Ophiuchi is outside and he's about to kill every single Umbrose descendant or every single Umbrose citizen in the realm? And in order for her to save hundreds and thousands of lives or however many people live in Umbrose, she has to leave 5 people behind, because then, yes, I would say her answer here is in direct opposition to what she promised Yrselle earlier. But if it's just to save these people because the palace is burning, then I would actually say it is in congruency with the answer that she gave earlier, which is I would do everything to save people. It would entirely depend on why she's trying to get them out. Well, Diem played the game, Yrselle. It's time for you to uphold your end of the bargain. Tell Diem her stance / her planned involvement in the upcoming war. And she does it in the most Yrselle way possible, with a biology lesson. Yrselle shares how in Sophos, they've been researching blood through breeding mortals with descended, then breeding that half descended with immortal again and again and again for generations. And how it's interesting, no matter how much mortal blood enters the bloodline, the kindred blood always outweighs any mortal involvement. But only one exception happens. When 2 different descended, so a descendant from Umbrose and Miros, for example, the child that they have together will always end up with the more powerful kindred blood flowing in their veins. Why is Yrselle sharing this with Diem? Because this war, as she puts it, will be fought over blood. Diem's blood. Okay, so we got to break this down. Since a more powerful kindred blood always prevails, and Diem has the same kindred blood as Ophiuchi, we can infer that Yrselle is talking about this war being fought over the most powerful blood of all. Now, whether or not that's her saying the war is 2 Omnoses descended on either side fighting each other,
That's what I'm leaning toward. Or the blood of both mortal and descended combined. So, like, I don't think that it's necessarily Omnos blood that Yrselle is specifically referring to with the war being fought over, but more so like good and evil, or how Diem's blood is other. It is not part of the 9 realms, but something else entirely that can reshape a new world.
I'll throw out another option. Is she referring to the war being fought over Omnos blood just in general, especially if Omnos blood is indeed connected to the Kindred's curse? So it's almost like the war is being fought over the Kindred's curse.
Ooh, I love that. Yes. I just had a random thought. You know the gift?
Yeah.
What if Diem's blood symbolizes the gift? I don't know how that fits into what Lumnos has said about a faithful heir needing it at the end, and Montios saying, share the gift to pay the cost. But what if Diem's blood is the gift?
I could definitely
I think you might have even said that as an option previously, so I'm sorry.
I can't remember.
Sorry if that was not your original thought.
And you judged me for it.
I was remembering
I said her heart. That was it.
That's what it was.
Never mind. Yrselle does say one more very important thing. Quote, "Those who are most certain they will live will find themselves among the first to die." All right, it's time to play Who's the Cockiest People in the Fight game. Ophiuchi, for sure. I feel like he's definitely cocky, but I don't see him at all being the first to die.
I think that the first to die has already happened. The king of Fortos is cocky enough to think that he would win, that he was strong, blah, blah, blah. And he is certainly among the first to die, so this has already come true. Potentially the same with the king of Igneos, which Yrselle is the cause of him dying. Big asterisk, he is not dead yet.
Asterisk there. I'll also throw out Vance. He is a martyr, yes, but he's definitely passionate about their belief in winning the cause.
He thinks his cause will win, but maybe not he himself.
I'll also throw out Gareth. I'll even throw out Remus in that same category. Doriel, especially with their huge win at the end of this book. I was just listening to all the Sopho sections earlier this morning, and I definitely don't think Doriel's making out of the series alive. And honestly, I don't know if I would put Diem on this list, though, because I don't feel like she's certain that she's going to live through, well, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to hold off on putting Diem on this list.
After dinner, we get another delicious Yrselle and Diem conversation. Listeners, do you understand why this episode is so long now? This particular conversation isn't about what Father Umbrose has told Yrselle, though. She's insisting that has to wait until tomorrow. It's her little way of dangling information in front of Diem, giving her just enough to show how much Yrselle does know and withhold even more to keep Diem close. We cannot forget what Penn said a little while ago about how Yrselle probably knows more than anybody else. And when the author says probably in that kind of context, I think it's the truth. But Yrselle does say that the Blessed Father Umbrose knows that she treats the mortals well, and that's why he told her everything. That's why he showed her DMs, and she cuts herself off, stopping herself from revealing more than she intends in the moment. I'm guessing Yrselle was going to say something along the lines of, showed me your fate. So I'm guessing Umbrose is quite right here, and this is also why Lumnos has chosen Luther as her faithful servant and showed him a vision, and Montios to the king, because they weren't, I'll say, anti-mortals, since, they banned them from the mountains for their own good. I'm going to keep that in mind as we head into Burn, with the crowns who are more sympathetic to mortals and getting more information from their kindred there. Because it does seem so interesting that the Sophos crown has not seemed to get the same lowdown from their kindred. And it's the Arboros kindred saying to the Arboros queen, hey, maybe you should go ally with Diem. Doesn't seem like it by any means. Anyway, I am going down so many rabbit holes this episode. Diem is expressing her hope that the future Umbrose crown follows Yrselle's example and allows the mortals to live freely in Umbrose. To which Yrselle laughs, stating the crown is not going to do any of this. So what I personally take from this is there's not going to be the same kind of structure in the world for Diem as the next crown to do any of this. And everything's going to be different. Is that how you take it too, Nicole?
Kind of. Like we've talked about, I think that the 9 realms are going to be completely torn apart and it's going to be rising as one. We'll talk about that with Montios in a few episodes. So that's what I feel like she's referring to, is how the state of the world is going to completely change, like you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. She tells Diem that the crowns can always sense their own heirs, though most keep this information to themselves unless they want their death happening sooner rather than later. But there's a catch. The knowledge only comes near the end of a crown's life, which is why Ulthar was not able to definitely say who his heir was, because he was, unconscious until the very end, at least when he gave that whole speech to Diem. So meaning that since Yrselle knows who her successor is, her reign is coming to an end soon. But when that's going to happen is not known to the crowns. The awareness of one's crown can come months before death, or mere minutes for other crowns.
There is something quite sus about the successor of hers, though. As Diem asks if Yrselle can point out who the successor is going to be, maybe so they can preemptively become allies, Yrselle says, nope.
I love Diem trying to shoot her shot.
I know. I really resonate with Diem this episode. Because the next Umbrose crown will be Diem's most difficult adversary. They will stand in the way of what Diem needs to do. They will drive a wedge between Diem and those she loves. And they will cost you a terrible price, Diem darling. And there's a strong chance they'll put Diem in an early grave. Oh dear. We know from the end of this book, the next Umbrose crown is Diem herself, which makes this whole exchange just rich. Diem is absolutely one of her most difficult opponents. As she promised Yrselle, she's willing to sacrifice everything to see the world she wants created, including watching those she loves die, including killing others, yada, yada, yada. And while she says she's willing to risk everything, as we've seen, sometimes she doesn't really follow through on that. She absolutely stands in her own way of what needs to be done at times. I have a deep feeling that this is going to happen with Ophiuchi, because Diem doesn't want to kill her birth father, as we see, but now she literally has a blood oath sworn to do so.
I absolutely agree with you, though. Even right before Diem makes that bonded bargain with Sophos, she wants the opportunity to save Ophiuchi and love him as her father. Oh, honey. And she's going to be her own worst enemy, as she has to realize what Luther will tell her soon. Some people are beyond redeeming.
Oh, we're going to honey Diem a lot in the second half of this book. But what about this part, though? They will drive a wedge between Diem and the ones she loves. I deeply worry about Diem and her inner circle next book, especially because Diem needs to kill Ophi, and that would end the war a lot faster. And her hesitancy would cost her a terrible price. It costs her family. I will also throw out another option. This costs you a terrible price could be someone she loves. This could be Henry. This could be Arlie. I'm just throwing out Henry at any possibility. Could be Arlie.
If Henry is this terrible cost that must be paid, I think the fandom's going to the bank. All right, what do we have to pay for this?
I'll also throw out Teller, because she's been keeping secrets from him, and that would be sad. But then there's this last part. There's a strong chance this new Umbrose successor will put Diem in an early grave. Again, another instance of Diem's gonna die foreshadowing. I'm worried, but then I go back to what I was saying earlier about the Everflame and how she has the power of this Everflame life in her. And I feel like that's gonna combat each other.
I don't know if the power of the Everflame, though, would be like an immortality sort of
Not
thing,
immortality, but it's the sacred power of life.
Oh, I see what you mean there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, also, it is like some heavy lifting with like a strong chance, probably. It's not concrete, set in stone, unchanged fate, right?
Yeah.
And so I do think that, kind of like what Lumnos was saying, where Diem's choices are going to make or break the world, pretty much.
No pressure.
This actually does bring me to what I wanted to say next, and I won't get too far into it because this episode is honestly too long to go into this much. But I really do want to highlight how Yrselle brings up unchangeable fate and how not everything is fated. This concept of fate is very popular in fantasy genres, and this is no different, as it asks, what is truly set in stone fate and what can be changed? Yrselle has determined that her own fate is sealed. But then, when Diem does not stay and Ophiuchi attacks the city, Yrselle will say Diem has set something unstoppable in motion. So was that Diem changing her fate? Making a choice that, changed fate? Or is it still guiding along the selected fate?
But Yrselle's not done. She says, quote, "The kindred are not dead, child." Record scratch! This is huge! Because as she goes on to say, the kindred bound their physical bodies to this world so that they would age and pass with their mates. But they did not die as mortals and descended understand. Instead, their bodies perished, but they endured. What does this mean? Is this like how they talk to them? It's like their spirit lives on?
I mean, like, kind of. Luther has talked to Lumnos multiple times, and other kindred have talked to Diem through their own crowns.
I do genuinely wonder if this is their way of communicating, like how Yrselle and Luther communicate with their kindreds, and it's because the kindred spirit is swimming in the ether.
As I understand it, the kindred are immortal beings. When they tried to make their mortals immortal, they ended up binding their physical bodies to mortal lives. But the kindred are otherworldly. That did not change. They are from an entirely different magical homeland. So when their bodies died, their spirit and their soul still endures because they are still in so many ways immortal. Only their physical body was not immortal anymore. Their spirit lives on where they can cause divine intervention, like making a crown pass sooner than they need to. Like Teller said back in Spark chapter 3 or something, or pushing Diem's boat back to shore to save Luther and co, or sending visions to people they like, etc., etc.
Now, Yrselle does say that their kind can die, which I 1000% believe she's referring to Ophiuchi. Maybe Diem, but I'm going to lean towards Ophiuchi. And of course, there's a very important bit of info of how to kill them that Father Umbrose never shared with Yrselle. Rude.
So I will say that I don't think Diem can die in the same way that Ophiuchi. Like, she's not a kindred. She is not immortal because she still has some mortalness in her.
I am not convinced of that yet. I don't know why.
Okay, so here's how I think Ophiuchi can be killed and how it's possible for him to die, because he did not bind himself to a mortal body. So if he is killed, his whole immortal self is killed.
Oh.
How to kill him, though? That is the big question. If we knew the answer, it would shorten burn up by about half, I'm sure. I am still convinced that the kindred sword has something to do with it. And maybe a magical spell of unity will find its way into the equation. So, peace can triumph over violence. That's just the vibes that I'm getting that we might get in Burn. So
I'm right there with you. Do you think that Diem is going to ask the gods this when she takes the Rosebane and gets zoomed in on the conference call?
If she does ask it, I don't think that they're going to give her a clear answer. She's going to have to figure out the answer on her own. That's what I'm saying.
Now I will throw out a new option, because our content researcher, Brooke, had a great note that she threw in the outline, wondering if this enduring is actually referring to blood lineage. So as long as someone in that kindred's bloodline is alive, the kindred spirit lives on.
Oh, that's good.
Fuck yeah, right?
Because then the kindred wouldn't have anyone left in this world attached to them.
Yes.
So, what would happen to the Gryvern?
Why would you ask that question? They'd be free. They'd be free.
So let's say that all of the centenaries are dead now after the attack. Does that make Umbrose dead if all of them and Yrselle, who are straight up from Umbrose and not like Diem, who is technically from a different one but just has their magic?
I'll tell you where my mind went, because it was way more, let's get to that kumbaya you were talking about a second ago. If there's only 2 Omnos descended left that are Diem and Ophiuchi, and Diem dies, and then Ophiuchi dies, the Omnos kindred would cease to exist because no one from their bloodline lives on.
After this conversation with Yrselle, Diem spends the next hour just driving herself crazy, debating whether or not to barge into Luther's room and share what's on her heart with him. But when she's at his door, Diem knocks, and it takes Luther a moment to drag himself to the door. And when he opens it to greet Diem, oh dear, you know how he looked like shit earlier? That was nothing compared to now. This is bad. He's still dressed in his dinner attire, but everything is wrong. And his room isn't much better than him. Actually, it's honestly worse. His room is in total disarray. Friends, this is not Luther Courbois. He is not a messy person in any way.
It just guts me that when Diem looks into his room, she thinks that this is the room of a man who has given up. Like,
no.
Oh!
Everything about Luther in this moment is the complete opposite of the man he's known to be. Gone is the perfectly calculated and curated image of a prince that can never be shaken, and all that remains is a man desperately trying to survive just one more day, and like Nicole said, kind of giving up on that now. Something is wrong, bottom line!
But Diem, she has made up her mind. She needs to get this off her chest to Luther, no matter how badly her old patterns of commitment now want to make her turn around. Diem tells him that yes, she obviously knows that something is wrong and he's keeping something from her. But she has released the need for brutal honesty from him. Because every scenario she has thought of, every single one of them, the most innocent to the most unforgivable, none of these scenarios she's imagined change the way she feels about Luther. She trusts him wholeheartedly. He makes her feel safe. At every turn, he's protected her, her soul, her happiness. It is who he is at his core. And since the challenging, she promised herself that she would never doubt him or his motives again, especially as it drove her literally insane last book. However, he's holding something so close to his chest that she does want to know. But at the end of the day, love is about trust. And she's telling him that she's willing to stand in that trust, even though she doesn't understand. All for him. Quote, "So keep your secrets. Push me away if that is what you need. When you're ready, I'll still be here." Oh, the irony! Luther was pushing her away in the hopes that would make her stop loving him. But sorry, buddy, you're too lovable, it looks like. While this is very sweet, this is Diem trying to emulate her parents' love, where they did keep those major secrets from each other and decided to stand in that trust and the love regardless of it. And I think this is her trying to model that. But yet there's multiple instances in this conversation even where her better conscience breaks through and she's like, "But why are you?" And then she catches herself and saying that, never mind, it doesn't matter. It does matter. And I think that this is a great learning lesson for Diem, that the type of love that your parents emulated for you may not be what works for you. But as she kisses him and shares that she will always be here, her hand brushes his hip.
It is time! Finally! For the truth to come out! Because, oh dear, her hand brushes against Luther's hip, and it dawns on her that he is bleeding. What the fuck, Luther? Why are you bleeding? Luther has bled through his bandages, and he can no longer hide that he is injured. He's so out of it right now, he's not even able to cohesively tell Diem why or how he is wounded. But bit by bit, it comes out. Luther was wounded back in Umbrose when Vance found them after they all escaped, just after Taryn was hurt. And it was a deeper cut than Taryn's 2 wounds, and it's located here on Luther's hip. He's been trying to heal himself using the same poultice that Diem used on Taryn, and then he made it the same way as Diem after watching her very closely. He's been seen by a healer in Umbrose. There's nothing left to be done. But as Diem can see, this is really, really bad. The wound is rank and festering, and black veins have webbed across his body's skin. I'm not going to get into any more detail than I have to with that. The only place it has not touched is above his heart, the same spot that his scar had mysteriously missed long, long ago. This is important to note here. Nothing can hit him at his heart. It's like Lumnos and / Diem is protecting it.
I'll get more into that later in foreshadowing, but I do wonder if he ever would have died from the Godstone. Even when he is fully unconscious, it's still not around his heart.
It is.
It's like
caged
around
encaging
it.
his heart, where it's going to suffocate his heart. But his heart itself is still strong, but it's like the exterior is so, yeah.
No! Everything begins clicking for Diem. Him asking if she'd ever forgive him. Him telling her that they don't have enough time. I'm like trying to make light of this because I can't be here for one more moment than I have to be. Yelling about how her taking a knife to the chest in Igneos, it should have been him. And while Luther's fears of Diem crumbling in true sorrow and feeling like laughing or smiling, it's a foreign concept, are coming true, internally, that Bellator fire ignites. She's a healer, and she is determined to heal him. I think that this is what Luther didn't fully, I won't say factor in, but rely on as much as he should have. Yes, she fell apart when her father was murdered. Yes, she blamed herself for his death, but he was dead. There was no bringing him back or healing him. Luther is not gone yet. And that Bellator never give up the fight attitude, they will keep taking action and trying until the very last breath. So the crumbling and sorrow that wants to take over her body is at war with Diem's determination. And right now, the determination, it is winning. Thank goodness!
Diem hurriedly and frantically gathers the rest of their crew, which, yes, includes Taryn and Zal naked together. Little huzzah for them, despite all the surrounding very badness. And poor Taryn is heartbroken when he comes to Luther's side, trying to joke about how Luther just had to rescue him when he told him to leave him behind. And these two cousins turned brothers start saying their goodbyes. Taryn recognizes this for how bad it is. And it's not like he's ready to give up on Luther, but he is being realistic. And he knows how bad of shape he had been in when he had the Godstone wounds. And it's like that, but like way worse. But the moment that Diem's like, nope, I'm going to heal him. And I don't blame her for riding on sheer will right now and devoting herself to her skill she is more sure of than anything else. That's when Taryn's like, okay, let's give you some motivation, Luther. If he dies, Taryn leaves Lumnos and abandons Diem, which he might not ever let Diem fend for herself. He loves her too much and is too loyal to her. But the truth of his hatred and loneliness in Lumnos or anywhere is all poor Taryn.
Let's go back to Yrselle's personal private dining room. Oh, I missed the dining rooms. Where there is a balcony for the recently called Sarai to land on and take them home in the dead of night. Quick aside, because as they're walking to the dining room, masked by Zeleric and Elise using light magic, Diem notices that the moon is basically just a fuzzy glow tonight. Maybe my moon watch is way too paranoid at this point, because I feel like this has to be notable, even if it is just literary symbolism. It's like whatever entity that is the moon that has Diem's back is masked. It's her ability to feel connected through it, whether the moon is standing in as a guardian or her power or whatever. But the fact that it's feeling fuzzy, it feels very on the nose with how Diem is right now. Everyone is prepared to sneak away, but there is one wild card. Will Zeleric join our crew to go back to Lumnos? His home has become Umbrose over the years. His businesses are in Umbrose. There are half-mortal children who are counting on him. Ugh. But his terre mère is Lumnos. And a man he's falling in love with is leaving and asking him to join him. Plus, who knows what will happen to Zeleric if he did choose to stay in Umbrose. Ophiuchi attack aside, the queen will be pissed that Diem and co all left. They could take that out on Zeleric. So he makes his decision. To Lumnos we fly! I love that his stipulation is that he will not hide who he truly is, especially not from his fam-bam, House Hanavera. I cannot wait to see this showdown. And also how he says to Taryn, I will not be someone's dirty little secret. It's him saying, like, if I'm going, we're public, baby. And I love that. Side note, time to update our count. Because when DM calls Sarai, Luther's like, no, stay behind. You need answers from the Queen of Umbrose. The only response I'm going to dignify that with is, Luther, you are now at 5 points. DM is at 4 points. But DM will not be outshone, because moments later, DM thinks about how the Queen and how big of a threat she is. She says maybe she should stay behind. And then Luther's like, no. So DM 5, Luther 5. I love these two, but this is such a hard chapter because God damn it, pick a side, y'all.
Remember that whole reason DM agreed to stay in Umbrose for 3 days? Yrsele's vote is the only thing preventing Orly's execution. And if DM pisses the Umbrose Queen off by leaving early, then that's a big risk for her mother's life. So here DM is stuck in the situation that Yrselle provided at dinner. Who will she choose to save in this metaphorical burning building? Luther or her mother? More in a minute on how DM doesn't answer her own question and instead refuses to choose so she can try and save them all. Do I think Yrselle would really cast her vote against Orly, knowing she has a role to play in what's to come? I'm kind of leaning no with how she will eventually cast her vote, even with all of this that goes down. But she's going to be pissed at DM for not staying like she said she would at the cost of her Umbrose people.
Who's ready for a classic fantasy fangirls battle walkthrough? Do you see why this episode is a million years long? Hearing a Gryvern approaching the balcony, DM and Alix are quick to realize that this is not Sarai. It would be impossible for her to get here this fast. So, it is the Umbrose Gryvern. Everybody hide! Which isn't a perfect solution, since the Gryvern will be able to smell and/or hear them. With everyone hidden, Dean dumps a flagon of ale on the terrace entryway in the hopes that it will mask their scents long enough for the Gryvern to just lose interest and fly away. Honestly, this is pretty brilliant. Now, with nowhere to hide, though, DM ducks behind a gauzy curtain, less brilliant, seconds before the Umbrose Gryvern lands. DM calls out to her godhood to help them and just sits back and waits. The Gryvern paces along the terrace's edge, nose to the floor, sniffing loudly, searching. And when it finally gets to where DM and Alix were, it freezes, turns around, and sniffs before turning its attention to the dining room. Everyone holds still and is safe until a little trickle of blood drips from midair where Luther and Taryn are hiding. This is deeply concerning, not only because the Gryvern just spotted them, but mainly because Deem just changed Luther's bandage and it's already seeped through. I don't know a whole lot about bandages and such, but I do know that this is very, very bad. Before the Gryvern can roast the two dudes alive, Diem jumps out from her hiding spot, taking the attention off of them. Attempting to negotiate with the beast, it's going pretty well. She asks the Gryvern if she knows that Yrselle will die soon, and it starts to back down. Oh, it knows that Diem is going to be the next crown, or at least we can strongly assume that. But side note, with Diem being the next crown of Umbrose at the end of this book, this Gryvern is going to be the second one she will be in charge of, have a connection to, since Fortos and Montios don't have Gryverns. So there is also this kinship there between them, until she hears Sarai approaching.
And what does Sarai do best? Protect Diem! The Umbrose Gryvern feels betrayed by Diem, who was just assuring her that she means no harm, she only wants peace, and that she will protect the Umbrose Queen as best she can from her approaching death. And now from the Umbrose Gryvern's perspective, Diem just lured her into a false sense of security. So the Umbrose Gryvern sounds the alarm with a deafening roar! Quick aside, like you were saying there, Nicole, I do bet that the Umbrose Gryvern senses Diem will be the next crown, but I believe that she is so loyal and close to her queen Yrselle that she's still very much focused on protecting and helping her current queen, unlike, I'll say like Tybalt, who does not like his king and is way more inclined to help Diem. Yeah.
Well, Yrselle even says earlier, she's like, unlike the Igneos beast, my Gryvern actually likes me. So I definitely think you're right. With Sarai landing, it's time to mount up. Getting the group on the back of Sarai, Luther being belted to Taryn twice. Shit, the Centenaries are here, which means Yrselle will not be far behind. But Diem has a plan. However, she can't tell anyone about it. If she stays behind, even for just a moment, she might be able to convince Yrselle to not change her vote on her mother's life. Remember, this was the whole reason Yrselle told her to stay, was so that she didn't change her vote. This is the mirror game in real life. Diem is choosing to try to save everyone, including her mother. But she will stay behind to convince Yrselle for only a few moments. She's unwilling to leave Luther right now. And she and her Gryvern have quite the pickup plan. But she can't share this with her friends. Since Diem has the ability to block the Centenaries and Yrselle out of her mind, and they won't be able to see what she's planning, but the moment she shares that with her crew, the Umbrose guards would know what she's doing instantly. The only soul who knows of her plan is Sarai, and I'm guessing they're just not able to read Gryvern's minds, which makes sense in my opinion, because that's more Fanos magic. What does this plan mean though? Leaving Luther and co. out of the conversation. So Diem tells Sarai to go, and Luther sees this as her choosing to sacrifice herself and stay behind. Have we said that sentence before? While this is a short-lived stay behind, I am still going to give Diem a point, because Luther panics like she's going to sacrifice herself, and this is still a very self-sacrificial thing to do. She could have been hurt. She could have been killed. So Luther 5, Diem 6.
Diem might be willing to temporarily stay back from her friends, and she might be trying to bargain with Yrselle that she'll come back and they can talk all the Umbrose Queen wants. But Yrselle cannot let Diem leave. As she says, her people's lives are on the line. They don't have the luxury of waiting for Diem to leave and come back. Every day he, who we know is Ophiuchi, grows stronger, and soon even Diem will not be able to stop him. If that happens, this entire world will fall and so will everyone in it. Well, that's not an ominous thing to say right now to Diem as she's trying to flee. Especially with what we've slowly been learning about the unrest in the north and the newspaper from last episode that hinted at more of his gaining power. Diem questions who this he is that Yrselle is referring to, but Yrselle will not tell Diem unless she comes inside. With Diem not making a decision one way or another, Yrselle sets her Centenaries after Diem to bring her inside, if forced by necessary. And they oblige, each one scraping down Diem's mental shields to get in. When Diem holds them off with a physical shield as well, the Gryvern sends a burst of black flames at her instead. Instinctively, Diem throws out her magic, coating half her shield in a blanket of glittering ice that held against the Dragonfire assault. That is so crazy that her ice held against the Dragonfire. This obviously is Montios magic, but the ice does not stop there, as shimmering ice crystals form on her fingertips. Even with the Centenaries doubling down on their mental attacks, where Diem can hear what they are demanding she do to be controlled, Diem is holding out strong. Yrselle is the only one who is not surprised by this impossible magic that Diem seems to be able to do, and she tries to lure her in by saying if Diem stays, Yrselle will show her who she is and what she's meant to do. It's time for her to claim her inheritance in full. And despite Diem's godhood, what is it, Nicole? In agreement, wanting to claim that inheritance, Diem is way too stubborn for that. Okay, so the Centenaries can't get through Diem's mental shield. Time to bring in the queen, who cuts through Diem's mental shields like a flaming arrow, pew, and tries one more time to appeal to her better nature. Well, yes, with some serious threats and warnings, but
she also doesn't say your birth father is coming to destroy my city. I think if she did, I still think Diem would have made the same
I was going to say,
but
what do you think Diem would do? If any information that she would take the information and then she would leave.
I'm fine with it. With the queen in her head trying to force Diem to submit, Diem looks at her and proudly declares that she is Diem Bellator and she kneels for no one. Cough, cough, except Luther, cough. Dropping her shields, Diem allows the queen into her mind, but instead of controlling her, it ignites her. That silvery, moon-bright glow shines from her skin, and waves of fire and frost coat Diem like armor. Throwing her arms out, Diem steps back, heels on the edge of the balcony, and she asks the queen if she remembers the answer that Diem gave her earlier that day. How much of her soul is she willing to set ablaze in order to see her plans through? And the answer was all of it. And Diem tilts her head back and falls off the balcony. This is so cool. But Diem does not fall for long when Sarai's talons close around her, snatching her out of thin air like another dragon we know and love.
Pulling up and disappearing into the clouds, the crew gets maybe 1 minute of peace before all hell breaks loose. A piercing shriek rings out from below as Yrselle and her Gryvern appear. Feeling Diem's fear, Sarai shoots higher into the sky, above the clouds, a whole new world. On a normal day, Sarai could just speed away with no issues, zoom, zoom, zoom. But she's overloaded with 5 people on her back and worn down from her urgent flight across the sea. Together, Alix and Zeleric use their illusion magic to hide Sarai and the group just in time for Yrselle to burst from the clouds. But Yrselle knows they're up here, even if she can't say no one will get hurt if Diem just comes back to Umbrose. Their last chance here, Diem! This queen is also willing to do anything for her people, and to save her people, she needs Diem to stay back. Diem conjures a flock of shadow beasts that tangle in Yrselle's hair and dress and smack at the Gryvern's wings. Pow, pow, pow! Again and again, Sarai zigzags, dodging waves of fire at them that are getting a little too close. But during this attack, Sarai has been slowly losing altitude, and her claws are now in the clouds, revealing their location to the queen. Uh-oh! Right as the Umbrose Gryvern unleashes a dark inferno at them, Diem's magic speaks up. Fight! Thrusting her palms out with 2 hands, an ice wall slams into the fire before vaporizing into steam. More Montios magic! I'm thinking that the Montios magic is coming naturally to her now as she's accidentally using it more since she got the crown, right? And I think that it's for that very reason. Diem is now the Montios crown, and her godhood is more in tune with that magic within her. So when she's doing these like reactionary magical things, Montios magic is coming forth just as easily as her light and shadow magic.
I could not agree more, yes. And I love the moment where Yrselle, despite being attacked with ice and, in a Gryvern chase, she smiles. Like this display of power from Diem is pleasing her. Because it is! God, I love it! But wait just a darn minute! While we at FFG have been talking about Diem having the power of all the kindred since literally episode 1 of Spark, this is just now fully dawning on Diem. It cannot be said enough how impossible this idea is. Diem feels like she wants to plead with her magic for this to not be true, like she has done previously. After all, she was really just coming to terms with the fact that she's descended, or the fact that she's a queen, something that she heavily denied in book 1, and of course, denied in book 2, as our Delulu Diems stated. With this acceptance, though, she found a home, she found a family, she found a place where she belonged. But if she has the power of all the kindred, which again, should be impossible, this puts Diem yet again back into that bucket of other. It's unfamiliar. It's uncertain. She doesn't know who or what she is. But I really do commend Diem here, because as old instincts of Delulu Diem start to take over and insist that she denies what she's seeing with her 2 hands, instead, she decides that, yes, this is overwhelming. Yes, this is terrifying, but right now, if she embraces it, she can help them get out of this situation. Points for Diem breaking the Delulu cycle.
Without her permission, her body reacts. It's Miro's wind magic time! Raising her hands, Diem's hair dances around her shoulders on a gust of warm, whirling wind as she sings the colors of the wind. With shimmering magic flowing from her palms, air fills Sarai's wings, relieving the strain of her muscles and giving her lift, pushing them forward. Go, Sarai, go! Diem offers up her rage to her magic, the wind bowing to her will as air slams into Yrselle's Gryvern. The beast topples sideways, oh dear, sending both falling down, down, down into the clouds. Miro's wind magic for the win! Although, I'll be honest, I like the Umbrose Queen and want answer from her too badly to be cheering her falling down, down, down through the clouds so much, but why can't they just get along, goddammit?
After a few moments of being lulled into a false sense of safety, Diem asks Alix and Zal to drop the illusions to save their magic. I get it. 1 second, Diem is talking to her friends. And the next, she's flying through the air. Quickly, Diem grabs onto Sarai with Terran and Luther now dangling below, thankfully still connected by the belt's buddy system. Zeleric pulls Diem up to her seat on Sarai's back, but there's some bad news. Alix has been knocked off and is tumbling through the sky. Oh no! Sarai shoots down after Alix, but the sea is closing in and she's out of reach from even her magic aiding her fall. Seeing the acceptance on Alix's face, Diem throws out her magic one last time, and the wind curves whirls beneath Alik's falling and jerks her to a stop. Ow. But I love seeing Miros Wind on display. Terran is able to grab Alik's with her boot just barely skimming the water's surface. That is how close Alik's was to going splat. And with the help from Zeleric, the crew gets her onto Sarai's back. Talk about a close fucking call.
But guess who's back? Yrselle! With Diem adamant on leaving for Luther's sake, Yrselle decides she'll just have to remove him from the picture instead. Well, that's not very nice, Yrselle. And it's like kind of like we're back in Igneos here, right? But anyway, Luther and Terran dangle below Diem with the belt connecting them hooked on Sarai's claw. The claw! And both men go slack-jawed and stiff. Yrselle is starting to control both their minds. Luther's arms go limp at his sides, and Terran's right arm wraps around Luther's throat. Oh dear. Though their expressions are vacant, terror blazes in both their eyes when Terran's hold involuntarily tightens. He's about to choke out his best friend, his chosen brother. No! Anything but this. Alix throws out her magic, wrapping it around Terran's arm to yank it away, but even the sizzling and blistering welts on his skin do nothing to affect his grip. Yrselle has full control of his actions right now. When Diem threatens to end Yrselle's reign tonight, Yrselle reaches into the minds of Alix and Sal, causing them to willingly just fall off the side of Sarai. Diem can't save them all despite trying her hardest. She's physically holding onto Alix so she doesn't fall completely off Sarai, and using her wind magic to hold Sal up after his fall, but down below, Luther is still struggling for air. Everything is fucked, and Sarai is willing and has her talons ready to trade Terran's life for Luther's. The claw! She knows how much this pains Diem. This is a decision Diem can't possibly make, though. Terran's ready to let Sarai take his life. He'd rather die than live with the knowledge he has murdered his best friend. Then there's Zal falling backwards, because can't forget about him. And right when Diem grabs for him, Alix pitches sideways, almost taking Diem with her. Friends, you should really watch this on YouTube right now. Diem's crying up to the gods above, begging them not to make her a murderer.
I'm so sorry to interrupt this Oscar-winning demonstration. This is one more callback, though, to Yrselle saying that Diem is going to be her biggest obstacle, because here she is literally being like, don't make me a murderer, when this was exactly the question that Yrselle asked earlier.
Exactly! That's what I'm gonna is Diem winning or failing this right now? I don't really know. Like, does she let Sarai kill Terran to save Luther? Does she let one of her friends go to save the other? You know, like with Zal and Alix that she's both holding right now? Or does she just fucking kill the Umbrose Queen herself?
Yes, that is the option that she is like, don't make me a murderer. And I'm like, girl, someone's gonna be a murderer here.
But she could do that with her, silver other magic that makes wolves go poof, right?
That makes the wolves go
building up inside of her.
Now, to be fair, this is about to be her own Gryvern, so she would also be living with the fact that she made her Gryvern go poof. Struggling to hold on, Diem throws out another plea. Anyone who will listen, please save her friends. And with one final look at Luther, Diem feels the last embers of her ruined heart curl to ash as he feels like she's saying goodbye to her love. And suddenly, a blinding light fills the sky. Then by a wave of sweltering heat and the smell of burnt skin. What? That was not Igneos magic, because Diem didn't feel her magic at work. Instead, Yrselle and her Gryvern are still in existence, but they're dropping into a free fall, hurtling towards the sea, screaming, wailing, tumbling, and burning as a bright, roaring lavender flame coats both of them. Alarm! 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 Earlier this battle, Diem lost the jar of lavender flames from a jostle from Sarai. But how on earth did the flames, first of all, catch up to them and come up and aid her now? Diem was asking for help from anyone, anything. So the kindred Montios, sitting in the conference room, hit the produce flames button.
I think it was the Gryvern.
No, yes.
The spirit of the Gryvern. Yeah.
So that was my other option. Or did Ramari aid Diem by blasting Dragonfire to save her queen? Because remember,
yes,
Diem is the Montios queen. Absolutely. I'm absolutely leaning towards the latter. Oh, I love this magic. It's so cool.
And once our crew gets securely in place on Sarai's back, they take off across the sacred sea, having no way of knowing that the next day Ophiuchi will attack Umbrose. These two queens will not meet again until Diem's rite of coronation round 2, and almost all Yrselle's secrets will die with her on the island. Or will they? Because Diem will still have her advice to take the Rosebane. And of course, Diem still has the key to the library with very, very rare books, including a Kindred's Diary and Ancient Mortal Tomes. But until then, number one priority is to get Luther back to Lumnos. That's why we all went through this, right? He needs to be surrounded by his loved ones, including Lily and Eleanor. His personal and steadfast mission has been to get Diem back to Lumnos so she can secure her power there and rule. And while he might be at the point of no return, Diem, first of all, refuses to think that. And more than anything, she needs to get him back to a source of comfort, to Moira, to get him to the comfort of Lumnos where they feel best treating him, no matter the cost. That's the biggest thing here, because could she have technically treated him to the best of her healing ability here in Umbrose? Could she have called for anything that she would need to treat him here in Umbrose? Yes, absolutely. But it came down to the comfort of needing home, and that was like where her mind immediately went, was they need to get home because he is injured. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. Think we could have come to a different solution. But anyway, however, as Diem will question herself later, could she have still made the same decision if she knew there would be an attack the next day and 3 powerful others were at full strength? Well, guess technically 2 powerful others, since Luther is, obviously out of commission, and Terran had the flame root. So it's Alix and Salaric at full power to fight alongside Diem against Ophiuchi and save who knows how many citizens of Umbrose. It'll be a question that Diem is not able to answer for herself when she does learn about this attack. Though one could argue Yrselle gave her a warning, although, like Nicole says, it was pretty vague and it could have been clearer about how she does need to save her people's lives. It was vague, yes, but Diem could not comprehend anything but saving Luther. And this question that she's not able to answer, would she have stayed back? I think that is an answer that she will have to face and go through with one way or the other at some point.
I agree. Who will live and who will burn?
Whew, all right.
We made it!
In this magic-fueled segment of the episode, let's tap into our Umbrose magic and turn our full attention to important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this book, as well as speculations for Book 4, Burn of the Everflame. We don't have too many here today since we said so much already, but first of all, we need to talk about these dragons that Yrselle brings up and how they're carved into her palace. Apparently, dragons exist in this world, and I have questions. Do they live in Amarian? Like in the Montios Mountains, like Smog style? Where do these dragons get their gold? What size are they in comparison to Gryverns? I assume Gryverns are like the most powerful since they're otherworldly.
Yeah.
But again, who knows? And if these dragons are not in Amarian, are they on other continents? Has Yrselle traveled to these other continents? And why is Umbrose connected to dragons? I'm guessing that this is a Yrselle's fascination since it is her sigil. Will we see a dragon in Burn? Honestly, my guess is no. We have the Gryverns, and this is just a nice little nod to fantasy. Never forget the dragon sigil in ACOTAR that I spiraled over during that deep dive way back when. But this time, we have access to the author. So, we asked Penn, what is the meaning behind these dragons? And here's what she had to say.
What made me choose dragons as the sigil for Umbrose, and will we see any dragons in this world? So small clarification, dragons are not the sigil for Umbrose. They are the sigil for Yrselle, the current queen. It is in the same way that the houses of Lumnos have their own sigils. So House Courbois has the phoenix as their sigil. For Yrselle, dragons are her kind of patron animal, and she really identifies with them because they're very powerful, they're scary, they're a little bit unpredictable, and of course, as she mentions in the book, they really hoard treasure and gold and, anything valuable, which she does as well, as we see in her reign of Umbrose. So it's more really that dragons are sort of the patron saint of Yrselle and how she interacts with the world. Will we see dragons in this world? No. I very specifically chose to include Gryverns instead of dragons, because I think we have a perception in our head of what a dragon is and the lore that comes with dragons. And, you know, we see a dragon and we assume certain things about them. And I wanted to create a creature where it was kind of a blank slate and you had to learn about who they are, where they come from, what their personalities are like, what they can do. And that's how we got to Gryverns, which are half griffin, half wyvern, which is a type of dragon. So that is the closest we will get to seeing a real dragon in this world.
That makes a lot of sense. Next, again, the secret ingredients in the Guardian's bombs is brought up. Diem throws it off as a joke because she drinks something vile from Terran's open bar. But this is now like the third time it's been brought up, second or third. Why do I feel like this is important?
I don't know.
I don't know. At the dinner with the Centenaries, Hagface mentions how they will not be fighting in any war. They're saying that to the future ruler of Umbrose, who assumably will take the living Centenaries to go fight in the war, if there are any.
Yeah, we don't know. They also do say that the Guardians won't come for them because they let mortals do as they please.
I don't think that's true. Well, obviously, the Ophia guy attacks the next day.
Exactly. And it's like we've been saying, we know this is not true, but it does make me wonder why Ophiuchi targets Umbrose. Is it because he might have a personal grudge against the Umbrose Queen, who was one of the crowns who locked him away during the Blood War?
Absolutely.
Well, why has he also been targeting Miros? I'm assuming because that is such a central place with the ports and whatnot.
Maybe. He seems like kind of the person who wouldn't be acting more... I mean, to be fair, we don't know Ophiuchi very well, but he seems to be acting more on vengeance than strategic military operation. Because or else why would he attack Sophos then?
Why would he attack Miros first? Why would he attack Sophos first? Like, I think that the Guardians have already been in Miros. Because there had already been a lot of that going on before Ophiuchi was released.
And maybe they saw Sophos as an easy target.
Maybe, yeah. I do think that Umbrose, however, I think that's a dangerous target.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And Ophiuchi wants to take the city out as soon as possible so it's not a threat against him. I also wonder, is it because of Diem? And he just barely misses her.
Oh, I could see both of those options, yes.
Because that would make sense with Sophos.
Yeah. Oh, that's rough. I hope some of the Centenaries are alive. Well, speaking of one of the Centenaries, who may or may not be dead, I have been dying to talk about this. We see our first official mating mark this episode. Drusilla, one of the Centenaries, who is mated to a Miros descendant, shows Diem and Co. her mating mark. It's an intricate knot of swirling lines resembling two hearts forging into a dagger with a silvery shimmer. Silvery! Pause! Because if matings are something that is divine or connected to the kindred, maybe, could the silver be a nod to that power that Diem has whenever she lets off that silvery glow? Could it be a nod to it being that of the kindred rather than that of Omnos? Like all of the kindred's powers are silver, because I know we've been going back and forth on this. Anyway, back to mating. While we will get into the ins and outs of mating and how we firmly believe that both Diem and Luther have already performed the mating bond in the last few chapters of this book, we will be doing that in a later episode. The fact that Drusilla here touches the mark on her wrist and it glows, and then when her mate touches it, it glows brighter and she can feel it. This is all the proof I need that when Diem and Luther in their vision touch their hearts, this is them touching their mating mark. And the reason Luther's heart keeps getting spared from the Godstone veins, from his father's attack, it is because Lumnos is saving that patch of skin for his mating mark. And later, Diem lays her hand over her heart, thinks of Drusilla's mating mark, literally right over the place where we strongly assume both Diem and Luther have their marks, and then she thinks about asking Luther to be her mate while they still have time. This is not an accident!
On the sort of same note as mating, Diem feels like she is immortal, and yes, that is in italics, as Umbrose's magic recharges her. No, I said this earlier that I don't think she is, but it does call into question if Diem is actually immortal. I'm not sure if that's possible with her mother being immortal, but knowing what we know about the kindred accidentally sacrificing their immortal life to be the same length as their mortal lovers, does that mean that when Diem and Luther mate, she would have his descended lifespan? Or is that immortal just like a reference to her kindred powers?
I personally think she has an immortal lifespan, that of the kindred, because Ophiuchi, if he is Omnos, never bound himself to a mortal, therefore giving themselves a mortal lifespan, then had a kid. He instead skipped the binding himself to a mortal and just had a kid. He also had a kid with the woman who's a descendant of the Everflame. And we heard from orally earlier that whatever magic is more powerful, that is the one that will become the person. That is the one that will overpower the blood, so to speak. So I think that DM could very easily be that of a kindred.
There's so many nuances, but it's absolutely possible. So
Thank
anyway,
you.
I just saw that italics with immortal and I had to call it out there.
Proud. When Taryn picks up the compass, it whirls and clicks to a stop, and he frowns at it. I think we're probably both in the same boat when we think that it landed on Zelaric.
That's definitely what I figure. I hope that it is Zelaric because the only other option that I could think of was some alcohol when he was not doing so good. So yeah.
Oh, I think it was Zelaric because it was right after he learned about Luther, which means that him and Zelaric had been mid bang bang bangity bang in session. So
That's
I would
true.
hope, yeah.
Yes.
So I'd hope that it would be Zelaric. And then as they're walking through the palace to flee, DM thinks, quote, "Who will live and who will burn?" We've talked about this. First off, this is a great tagline for Burn of the Everflame. I just think that would be a really good tagline for a book. But secondly, this is going to be the big question of the series that we are leading up to. And my favorite part, yes, it's in italics.
I have a feeling that we are going to need 3 to 5 days to recover from burn. The setup for emotional devastation is terrifying me.
All right, friends, it is time to enter the Sophos Library, where each episode, Lexi guides us through a world-building topic to help us deepen our understanding of this world, its magic, and my personal favorite, its history. I've been waiting for this episode.
Today's Sophos Library topic is the Blood War. We've been talking about this historical war since the very first episode of our Spark Deep Dive. So let's dive on in and fully explain it now. The Blood War was a devastating but pivotal war in Amarian history, waged between rebel mortals and the Descended, with thousands and thousands of casualties on both sides and lasting effects on this world. The mortals were tired of the oppression from the Descended and wanted to fight for their autonomy. The war was so violent and far-reaching that it left a permanent mark on the political, magical, and social fabric of Amarian. It's remembered not just for its brutality, but for the ideological war over blood and power itself. As for when this war occurred, all we know so far is that it happened centuries ago. That's how it's always described in the books. But we, again, have access to the author. So we asked Penn, when exactly was this blood war?
How many centuries ago was the Blood War? So I don't think I ever give a specific date, but I would just say it was many centuries ago, to the point where most Descended alive today, except the very, very oldest, wouldn't have been alive for that war. It's just a very small percentage of people. And certainly the mortals have had several generations. So I would say, to kind of put it in the sense of a war we might think of in our world, for the Descended, it was kind of like, you might say, World War II or so. You know, only the very oldest people alive today would really remember it, and they would have been very young when it happened. And then those who are much younger, like what we would consider kids, you know, the equivalent for the Descended would be the mortals. For them, it's just a historical thing that happened that doesn't really tie into their present life. So that's the historical placement on a timeline, but I don't give a specific time range.
Okay, so that's along the same lines that we were thinking here. I know that we've been like at least 500 years. Sounds about right here. If I had to guess, and I know Penn did not share any numbers with us on purpose, but I'm going to say about 700 years ago. That feels right to me. Anyway, 2 of the 9 crowns at the start of the series had been crowns during the Blood War. Yrselle of Umbrose, who is now described as on the mature side for a Descended, but not old looking. So given what Penn just shared, she would have been a very young crown when this happened. Then there's the Montios king, who was an elderly man at the start of Spark, and the other crown who was alive during the Blood War. So I'm guessing that he was a little bit more in his prime at that time. The Guardians of the Everflame was the mortal rebel group who took up arms against the Descended to fight for their homeland. They collected weapons to use against the Descended and their Gryverns, like Godstone bolts, and they became a formidable enemy against the Descended. Correal was the central final battleground of the Blood War, offering a rare equality in combat for the mortals and descended. It was a highly sought-after prize in the Blood War. Since no magic or wyverns are allowed on the island, the descended had to fight like the mortals and no longer had their magic as an upper hand. But remember, the descended crowns still had to go to Corel for any foraging rituals. They needed that island for the Heartstone and source of their magic, so they needed to be able to get to that island, and of course the mortals knew this, and it was a highly sought after prize, obviously. A blood sun appeared on the eve of the war, which, according to the mortals, gave the war its name. But we know from Yrselle that the old Lumnos king was the one who actually coined the name Blood War. The war was about blood. Whose would triumph, whose would survive. During the war, Igneos tried to stay neutral as long as they could, but eventually they were forced to side with the descended to save their own realm from the poisoned oasis. As a whole, the crowns were certain that they would prevail, because they believed the blood of the 9 kindred would always win out, in war and in life. But this thinking cost them dearly. They underestimated the mortals because of their hubris, and it almost cost them the war. The descended ended up losing 2 Gryverns, the Fortos Gryvern and the Montios Gryvern, as well as thousands of lives. We can't talk about the Blood War without bringing up Ophiuchi, but the thing is, we know very little about him during the Blood War. All Sophos has is one clue: a map of the island marking the hidden door with a note that it should never, ever be opened for any reason. And it's dated just after the Blood War, so he must have been imprisoned around then. Oh my god! Something tells me there is more about him in Yrselle's library, but that's just me, and I need to know more, and I wish she wasn't dead now. Anyway, in the aftermath of the Blood War, realms enacted brutal purity laws, especially Umbrose with their ability to control and/or read minds. The Umbrose Queen executed all but the most powerful 100 of her own descended. Then in Lumnos, the progeny laws passed to avoid further diluting descended magic. Most realms also placed extra restrictions on mortals, which vary in severity depending on the realm, and a few even banning them outright, like Igneos. Check out our Sophos Library in Heat episode 2 for that whole post-Blood War story about how the mortals were run out of their home realm only to be killed before most could get into Umbrose. Throughout the realms, these harsh laws were passed to punish the mortals and to keep them in permanent subjugation, and mortal exile or execution became more commonplace in several realms. While mention of the old gods had previously been removed from history, it wasn't until after the Blood War that mention of the Everflame was also banned, because it had been the rallying cry for the mortals, so the descended attempted to remove it from existence too. Any and all references to old mortal religions are still forbidden to this day. Even with these restrictions in place, and the rebellion mostly crushed, the Guardians survived in small cells across Amarian, and have continued to fight for their cause in secret over the centuries. Political changes and consequences from the Blood War include Fortos gained control of the joint military, with a new rule where action required a vote of 6 crowns instead of unanimous consent. Since it was nearly impossible for all 9 of them to come to any unanimous agreement, they needed to enact this new rule during the Blood War to get anything done. So the new rule meant the army can act on a vote of 6 crowns instead of all 9. After the Blood War in Lumnos, the challenging system was introduced to curb assassination attempts on crowns. Previously, before the Blood War, the 20 houses were constantly killing the crown in hopes of being the next one selected. After the Blood War, where the descended realized they need to come together stronger, they eliminated this pattern and this risk of constant assassination with the challenging. Last thing of note with political and cultural change is the use of Godstone became heavily restricted to prevent it from falling into rebel hands again. The crowns agreed to confiscate and destroy the caches of Godstone weapons that the kindred left behind to their first descended crowns. But even the crowns couldn't destroy them, so the Godstone weapons were locked away in Fortos. However, as we know, illicit pieces can still be found for outrageous prices on the black market. Sightings of it are rare, even for the descended. Except in our story. And there you have it! The Blood War!
Let us close out the longest episode of Fantasy Fangirls ever with skipping around the apple orchard and discussing our favorite moments from this stretch of chapters.
I just can't help but giggle at all the Luther growling in the background. Which reminds me, I have started my rewatch of The Witcher, and Geralt
of Rivia. Henry Cavill needs to play every fantasy man ever. That is my hot take. I love Zeleric egging Taryn on as they're fighting, saying that he's seen better punches from an armless newt.
There are so many great Zelric moments in this stretch of chapters, and I appreciate him and Diem's growing connection. He's the only other descendant she has met who can relate to her in any way where they grew up as mortals. And he pledges her his loyalty, and he asks her the question about how she, went into his mind, because he knows that was Umbrose magic. He knows what that feels like. But he picks up on her hesitancy, and he's like, oh, silly me. Secrets cost money, and I have no gold. And he's like, gives her a little wink and an excuse to depart the conversation. I just love him so much.
While we know she's a little unhinged, I do love how Zelric describes Yrselle as someone who has condemned entire families over small discrepancies while also letting severe crimes go because she was having a good hair day. Listen, yes, she's a little unhinged, but that is one powerful good hair day. And if you know, you know. Luther may be falling apart this episode. My God, I'm so happy to get to next episode where he'll be normal again. But when he flirts with Diem, as Diem is literally thrown over Terran's shoulder, so Luther is face to face with Diem's ass, he says, quote, "As much as I'm enjoying this view, I'm rather partial to her face." That's cute. I love it. Of course he looks like shit when he says it, but I don't care. When Diem and Terran are talking and she makes the order, "No fighting while drunk," Terran says that sounds like something Luther would say, to which Diem replies, quote, "That probably means I'm right." Again, we're in a rough stretch of chapters for my boy, but I do love this line.
As Diem is sharing with Elix that she is terrified what will happen if she loses Luther and if she's left alone with her rage at his death, Elix's response is just pure found family. Quote, "You won't be alone. We'll all grieve together. We'll be furious together, and then we'll fight together for him."
God, I love Elix. What an underrated character. Oh, she's so good. Of course, everything about Diem and Sarai's reunion. They're running into each other's arms, her kissing the top of her little head. I miss this Gryburn so much. And last but not least, even in the midst of crazy battle, Luther tells Diem that he can't help but argue with her because Bellators are stunning when they're angry. And Diem says, quote, "I'll pass that along to Teller on your behalf." We needed this humor between the two of them.
All right, there you have it, friends. Thank you so much for listening to the 4th episode of our Heat of the Everflame deep dive.
Because of our crazy travel schedule, we are taking a break from Kindred's Curse next Monday, and instead we are releasing our live show recording where we are deep diving the movie Shrek. Then the following Monday, September 1st, we are back in Amarian with Heat of the Everflame episode 5, chapters 42 through 55. Friends, we are going back to Lumnos. We're curing Luther. We're going to Fortos. We're killing the king. And my favorite part, it is our last Henry hat of this book.
It's our only Henry hat of this book.
Henry hat.
I'm going to have to pull out the big ones for that one. I don't even know what I got to do for that. Oh my God. In case you missed it, the next series we are covering after these 8 Heat of the Everflame episodes is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. We'll deep dive this in the lead up to the sequel, Brimstone, and then cover that throughout the end of the year. We absolutely do plan to cover the 4th and final book of the Kindred's Curse saga, Burn of the Everflame, as soon as it releases. More details on the schedule when there's a release date. We'd love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest Crowns Council members.
Welcome, Kimberly G and Alex. Welcome. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here and supporting the show.
And if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted out on the podcast and be showered with all the love and attention too, join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes.
Thank you, as always, to our top Sophos scholar, aka our content researcher, Brooke, and of course, our executive producer, aka our sanity manager, Hayden. We love you both.
We are very active on social media with weekly trivia and lots more, so please be sure to follow us on Instagram and /or TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube or want to watch on YouTube, we always have some really fun battle reenactments. Please hit that subscribe button to keep following along.
While you're hitting buttons, don't forget to hit whatever star rating you'd like to give the show.
Five, please.
Ideally, it's 5. And of course, please don't just do that for this show. Do it for any and all podcasts you listen to. And if you're feeling extra lovey-dovey, write a little love note in that review section. It is seriously like a hug to all of your favorite podcasters. And last but not least, share this episode with your fellow Everflame friends. If you wanted a rundown of every single thing that happened in that library because you were like, Montios, what? This is a great episode for you to listen to and then send to a friend who also probably wants a library download. Don't worry, we've got another library download coming soon.
All right, friends, thank you again so much. We will see you next week for the Shrek Deep Dive, and then the week after that, we'll be back with episode 5. Bye!
But what's that smell, DM? Shit in her glass of our... Shit in her glass. Shit in her glass. Ew.
Aggressively boop you.